Chapter 431, A Dumpling's Reminiscence 4. The ensuing scenario afterwards proved to be plain sailing. Zhu Beiji had a big role to play in that. Current rate of journey to the West's progress, 24%. The journey to the West had the storyline of overcoming a total of 81 different adversities in the 14-year period. But, as the original work used the stories passed down orally as its foundation, this level of changes didn't seem to matter one jot. Even then, I couldn't help but wonder if the story was progressing a bit too fast when we hadn't even met Sha Wujing yet. And I also kind of wondered who'd play that role too. Kuwayak. Currently, Yu Yonghyok's dark heavenly demon sword was busy cutting the heads off the unlucky bandits that showed up as a sort of intermission event. A portion of judges are dissatisfied by the viciousness of Zhu Beiji. Audience members are satisfied with the taste of the journey to the West Sider. 10 additional points have been acquired. Even back in the original story, Zhu Beiji and Sun Wukong often killed all human-type villains they came across. That resulted in Tang Sanzang lecturing them, or when the matter became too serious, they even suffered expulsion too. There were quite a few readers who felt turned off by the stuffy uptightness of Tang Sanzang, though. Yonghyok Ajasi, how about sparing those people? A portion of judges are satisfied by the reflection of the original work. Many audience members are arrested by Tang Sanzang's adorableness. 20 additional points have been acquired. For sure, the question of who was playing the role seemed to make a big difference overall. The leader of the bandits, beaten up to within an inch of his life by Yu Yonghyok, yelled out as if he was furious about his treatment. Yuk, who would have thought that a mere Zhu Beiji was that strong? Surprisingly, he was someone that I knew. Kids next to me whispered to each other. Poor Myongo Ajasi. The department chief Han Myongo activated one-legged swift horse, and while running away as if his butt was on fire, sent us a knowing wink. To think that Han Myongo was one of the players participating here, too. It seemed that he was hired to perform multiple roles, specifically as leaders of various bandit troops. Shin Yuseung softly muttered as we watched his distancing back. Hui-Wan Unni said that it was okay. Yu Yonghyok returned to our side while lightly polishing the dark heavenly demon sword. He especially paid more attention to the center of the blade. When I took a closer look, a minute crack could be spotted there. His sword was broken on the battlefield of the Great War of Saints and Demons. This would be his second sword to be broken after the heaven-shaking sword. Even if he didn't show it, he must have been hurting over this whole thing. It'd be good if he could get himself a new weapon from this journey to the West. But I couldn't recall any weapons that might suit him. Sun Wukong's Rui Jingu Bang wasn't the type of weapon that Yu Yonghyok was familiar with, and Zhu Beiji's nine-tooth spike rake didn't match his taste. No need to even mention Sha Wujing's demon-slaying staff either. Maybe he found me, deeply submerged in my thoughts, suspicious, as he suddenly addressed me offhandedly. Thankfully, you behaved yourself. Interpretation, senior brother, are you injured anywhere? I couldn't help but glare at the narration floating up in the air. What the heck was that now? Behave yourself even in the future, then I won't kill you. Interpretation, Fufufu, senior brother, do not worry. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I shall definitely protect you. I became slightly dismayed and glared at the sky. Hey, there's just no way he'd be thinking like that. Besides, Yu Yonghyok would never laugh Fufufu in his life. Han Suyong, you dumbass. A fair number of audience members are greatly moved by Zhu Beiji's inner thoughts. A fair number of audience members have fallen deeply for Zhu Beiji's magnetism. One of the audience members wished to sponsor coins. Judge Cleanser of Altars is greatly satisfied. 50 additional points have been acquired. What an outstanding author she was. The journey proved to be rather uneventful. Sun Wukong began thinking, is this what it means to lead a retired life? In any case, the trip was indeed quite stress-free, as long as I excluded the constant war of nerves with Yu Yonghyok, that was. As for yogos or bandits that periodically appeared, either the kids or Yu Younghyuk took care of them even before I could spot them. Oi, Mr. Demon King of Salvation, you must be really comfortable, aren't you? Yes, it's all thanks to you the masters. I should also thank Han Soo-young for me getting referred to as the Demon King of Salvation, even though my identity hadn't been revealed yet. This I've become the retired SSSSS rank Sun Wukong, had a strange backstory of Sun Wukong being nicknamed the Demon King of Salvation in his past. I couldn't really figure out why she'd use such a nickname here. A portion of audience members like the story where the Demon King of Salvation is treated poorly. 10 additional points have been acquired. Nope, I think I know now. Stop picking a fight with someone you're not familiar with, you dummy. No, that's not it. I mean, he should earn his keep, right? Dokya Hyung told me that even if your body's relaxing, your head should still be working overtime. I definitely never said that. When you were relaxing, you should relax your mind too. Yi Gil-yong narrowed his eyes to a slit and stared at me while adding a few more words on top. That's why you should give up some tasty info already. I mean, you're supposed to be a second-turn Sun Wukong according to the backstory, right? Don't you know where we can find some hidden elixirs or something? Monsieur, I know of a few. Indeed, the journey to the west did feature quite a few useful elixirs, such as the peach of immortality that Sun Wukong ate, or the ginseng fruit the group finds during the journey itself. One of the best elixirs can be found nearby. Really, where? I didn't reply and simply stared at Yi Gil-yong. Where is it? Hurry up and spit it out. Before I could explain, the narration began first. In the original journey to the west, Tang Sanzeng was kidnapped by Yogos dozens of times because of the legend that any creature devouring the monk would ascend to the heavenly world. But that made sense, considering that Tang Sanzeng was the reincarnation of Golden Cicada, the disciple of Buddha who had gone through 10 cycles of rebirth. While watching the jaws of the two kids drop gradually, I added an extra explanation on top. Most likely, you masters are the best-known elixirs found within the entirety of the journey to the west. Yi Gil-yong and Shin Yu-seung flinched before taking quick steps away from one another and glared fiercely at each other. Hey Shin Yu-seung, you don't need a finger or two now, do you? You probably don't need anything above your neck, though. Watching the kids growl at each other like that, I couldn't help but snicker on the side. The dumpling on my shoulder didn't seem to be happy with my current actions and whispered to me. This is no time to snicker like a fool. It's you who needs an elixir or two, not them. Along with his rebuke, a window popped up in my view. Outer God transformation progress percentage, 48%. The rate of assimilation was chill-inducingly fast. I didn't expect this one to be quicker than the journey to the west's progress. It's because your incarnation body's rate of recovery is too slow. This was not a part of the deal. And you sneakily cooperating with Kim Dokya Company was not a part of the plan either. I bit my lip. As expected, the Wenny King was a scary guy. But then again, he had been fighting the Dokibai King for his entire life, hadn't he? It was highly likely that he even foresaw the current situation. 999 spoke as he studied my incarnation body. You only have around 4 days. You need to fulfill the agreement before then. That's impossible. I need to finish this scenario first in order to do that, but I don't have enough time. The deal with the Wenny King was to create a great fable that contained an outer god. I was planning to fulfill that agreement through this great fable, but 4 days simply was too short. At the bare minimum, I needed over a week. In that case, there is only one method remaining. We need to strengthen your frail incarnation body. I nodded my head and checked out my body's condition. Current incarnation body recovery rate, 45%. Damage to your foundational fable is critical. You can consume a new type of elixir to boost the rate of recovery. The reason for the rate of transforming into an outer god speeding up was simply because My incarnation body hadn't recovered fully from the damage I suffered during the Great War of Saints and Demons. Fable Fragment, young gold dragon's broken heart, is unable to function properly. Now that I thought about it, I was too focused on gathering fables and neglected on enhancing my incarnation body's durability. Well, I half gave up on the idea after I kept dying and stuff, so, as for the young gold dragon's broken heart, now that was a fable fragment I acquired a really long time ago. Just like what the one invincible fist, Yu Hosiang told me, though, I needed to train my incarnation body if I wanted to bring out the full might of the fables. Because if fables were words, then one's incarnation body was the paper those words could be written on. Every elixir that can be found in here should all be replicas. Still, it'll be better than not consuming one. Score 2963. Currently, 5 judges are watching the applicable fable chamber. Currently, many audience members are interested in the upward trajectory of the fable chamber. Current ranking of the applicable fable chamber is 31st. In a fairly short period of time, the scenario created by Han Soo-young managed to earn the support from many people out there, and a story where many were sharing the cost of probability could exhibit pretty strong power as a result. As the Fable Chamber's ranking rises higher, the grades of star relics found within the applicable chamber will also rise up. As the chamber's ranking climbed up, every item that showed up here would get closer and closer to the grade of their original counterparts, and if we managed to win, then they would become originals outright. In other words, everything we find in this Fable Chamber would become real things. If our chamber's ranking continues to climb as smoothly as it had done so far, and if I manage to successfully gather the elixirs, then Great Fable, Season of Light and Darkness, is currently asleep. You don't have the qualification to use the applicable fable. Then maybe I might get to utilize the power of this Great Fable that I earned but hadn't been able to unleash until now. Great Fable, Torch that swallowed the myth, is afraid of Season of Light and Darkness. Even the torch that swallowed the myth was scared of this fable. Right now, I couldn't even begin to imagine how incredible the power of this fable was. Stop. It was at that moment when Yu Young-hyuk walking out in front came to a stop. The sky that used to be clear and blue was now dyed in a yellowish hue. I took a closer look to find that the yellowish fog had blanketed the surrounding landscape as well as the sky above. You have arrived in Yellow Wind Cave at Yellow Wind Ridge. Yellow Wind Ridge, was it? This was the residence of one of the journey's villains, Yellow Wind Demon King. If my thoughts were correct, then one of the elixirs I need should be found nearby. It was here that we heard an incoming message. High number of players are joining this Fable Chamber. The original number of players for this chamber was 8. However, there was a sudden influx of additional players. Yi Gil-yong muttered as if he was dumbfounded by it. But why now? It was logically difficult to explain. The newly entering players to a Fable Chamber that no longer recruited roles could only become extras, and not much else. And these extras would not get any proper rewards even after the chamber was concluded successfully. That was the situation for the top 10 ranked Fable Chambers, so there was no need to even mention participating in this 31st. No, hang on, there was. A small number of audience members are wary of the 6,730 first Fable Chambers rise in the rankings. A portion of audience members are looking forward to your destruction. Many audience members are paying attention to the Fable Chamber's sudden upheaval. The current situation was this. Our Fable Chamber had shot up from the bottom of the ranking all the way up near the top in a proverbial blink of an eye. Yu Young-hyuk spoke, his expression hardening. Bastards are trying to ruin our scenario. It was unknown who might be the instigator in this case, but I could think of something. Most likely, these guys were spies sent in from the great nebulas participating in the Journey to the West remake, as well as from other top-ranked Fable Chambers. They must have been fearing what might happen in the Star Stream if Kim Dokya Company, managed to snatch away yet another great fable here. Kugugagugu. The fog rushed forward in an instant and swallowed us up. The first one to disappear under the fog was Yu Yonghyok's figure, looking back at us and issuing a warning. And then, the surprised voices of Shin Yuseung and Yi Gil-yong resounded out next. Disciple Nim, hurry and hide behind us. Stay behind and don't step forward, got th. Even before I could make my reply, the kids disappeared as well, and the fog came to a stop right before my nose. Soon, I heard the sharp noises of weapons clashing coming from here and there. The dumpling on my shoulder asked in a quiet voice, "Aren't you going in?" "I want to, but," said I, as I felt the presence approaching me from behind, "I think their aim is me this time." I looked back and saw the extras hurrying over here on the Yellow Wind Ridge's pathway. Constellations disguised as the underlings of the Yellow Wind Demon King were walking closer while emitting unfriendly auras in my direction. So that's the Sun Wukong. He must be a weakling, judging from his status. Did they really think we'd be scared by them, attaching the Demon King of Salvation moniker onto a weakling like him? Only then did I figure out what their real goal was. No matter what, the main protagonist of the journey to the west was Sun Wukong. If he dies, the journey would end too. A portion of judges are worried about your safety. A portion of audience members are worried about your safety. I watched the constellations come closer and felt really conflicted about this whole thing. Retired Sun Wukong didn't want to fight. Why? Because it was annoying. Retirement penalty has steeply decreased your will to fight. Yup, it was all because of that damn retired setting. Judge, prisoner of the golden headband, is digging his ear as if he can't be bothered. Judge Baimon is opening a book to read with a refined expression. Judge Mehaweng is yawning out in boredom. Those Sun Wukongs, feeling sick and tired of hard-carrying the journey to the west by themselves originally, wouldn't enjoy this type of development at all. Utterly not caring about that, the extra constellations wielding scary-looking weapons finally arrived in my near vicinity. Kill him. Interpretation, Hahat, kill that baldy monkey. Kill him. Interpretation, fuck Black Square, it's the bastard that cleans up the poo of the heavens. Kill him. Interpretation, a rock Black Square for brains monkey. I was about to throw a tackle, arguing about the validity of such interpretations, but then the channel was suddenly flooded with an explosion of messages. Judge, prisoner of the golden headband, is enraged while holding onto his hair. Judge Baimon is shuddering angrily at the filthiness of this story. Judge Mehaweng wishes for the heads of those fools to roll. A portion of judges are providing a great amount of probability towards the progression of the applicable fable chamber. If this story's direction is changed, then a large amount of additional points will be acquired. Then, a private message has arrived from the scenario master. Hey, you said you can fight a bit, right? The narration began even before I had time to reply. There was one thing that all these yogos rushing in didn't know. Without a doubt, he was the retired Sun Wukong. However, he was also Sun Wukong that didn't hide his own strength either. Along with all the messages clogging up my view, the title card for the new episode floated up as well. Episode 3, The Demon King of Salvation Isn't Hiding His Powers. Episode 81, A Dumpling's Reminiscence 4, Finn. Chapter 432, Outer God 1. The constellations rushing and flinched after checking out the title card floating in the air. What's up with this episode? He's not hiding his powers. What? Never mind that and just kill him. I sighed out grandly while looking at all those weapons brandished at me. That damn Han Soo-young. I began wondering if this was how every character felt inside. Characters that had to follow along with the plot that the author had cooked up and had no choice but to overcome the obstacles set before them. Yu Yonghyok had overcome such trials and tribulations for tens of thousands of years. If I had one advantage over him, then that would be me knowing who the author of this particular scenario was. Sweesh. Two strands of sword auras tore apart right before my eyes. I easily avoided the attacks with airy footsteps and thought to myself. I had a chat with Han Suyong in the past about a certain something. There are two types of writers in the world. One, a diligent type of writer who plots everything out in advance. And then, the genius beautiful girl writer who entrusts herself to the feelings of the moment without relying on prior planning. Oh, and which one are you? Hey, you dumbass, you asking me because you really can't tell. So then, that genius author had written this very scenario, did she? Judge Mahawang is readying some beer. Judge Baimon is readying some drip coffee. So you want to abuse me a bit for the sake of satisfying the tastes of the main readership, was that it? I stared at the sky and muttered out. Hey, listen, you know that this is a trade, don't you? Scenario Master is tilting her head after hearing your words. Even if that was her reaction, Han Suyong should have realized what I was talking about here. In the meantime, the constellations had me surrounded. You came riding on a bus this far, so it's time that you make your exit. Making an exit. Now, where would these idiots learn such a scary phrase from? We'll have to wait and see who will make their exit first now, don't we? I couldn't activate either the lightning transformation or way of the wind. Not only that, I couldn't use my usual unbreakable faith, either. After all, it'd be troublesome to let others know that I was Kim Dakya. Still, there was no need to utilize my main attack options when dealing with these low-leveled mobs right now. Su-cha-cha-cha-cha. Because I was none other than Sun Wukong. Judge Prisoner of the Golden Headband is nodding his head. You've been permitted to use a portion of Prisoner of the Golden Headband stigmas. If I was a regular constellation, dealing with such a stigma would have been a tall order. However, I was a fable-grade constellation and possessed 3 different great fables to boot. Kugagagugu. This time, the onomatopoeia was not made by someone's mouth, but from actual thunders cracking in the sky for real. As the lightning bolts flashed in the air, I yanked out a handful of hair and blew them into the air. Stigma body outside body magic is activating. The body outside body technique. Simply put, it was Sun Wukong's version of the skill avatar. What is this? Quraka. The clone Sun Wukongs proliferated in the blink of an eye and began pummeling the enemy constellations to pulps. Suddenly, narration speech bubbles floated up above the heads of the clones rushing forward. The Demon King of Salvation isn't hiding his powers. It seemed that she had momentarily forgotten that she was the narrator here. Su-cha-cha-cha-chu. I only borrowed the power of a single magic skill, yet the condition of my body worsened noticeably. It was exacerbated by the fact that I was gravely injured already. Goddammit, why hasn't you Junghyuk come out of the fog yet? Your incarnation body's recovery is being delayed. Condition of your incarnation body is worsening. I gazed at the murky interior of the fog and pretended to be unconcerned. The retired Sun Wukong needed to look strong, no questions asked, and I must never go all out, no matter what. Kim Dakya thought to himself, I'm Yu Jung-hyuk. I bit my lips and formed the expression similar to the coolest person that I knew. Screw this, we're retreating. It seemed that my ploy worked, as the constellations began retreating from the perceived threats to their lives. A great number of players are exiting the scenario. In the blink of an eye, the only things remaining around me were the empty husks that the constellations left behind. You. However, even these husks possessed egos. They were creatures tasked with acting as Yago extras in this world. Suddenly, my heart began beating irregularly. Chaos is writhing within in your heart. Rate of outer god transformation is accelerating. Stigma Fiery Golden Eyes LV has been forcibly activated. As my vision burned in the crimson hue, the collapsed Yogos revealed their true appearances. Where is this? Again. Yogos carrying suffering expressions had their heads shoved against the ground while screaming out. It wasn't that difficult to understand why. I had witnessed similar existences to them on the Isle of Reincarnators already. They were creatures mobilized to fill up the lacking probability in the fabled chambers of this journey to the West remake. Expendables, cursed to eternally repeat the life of being used as extras of other stories. The problem here was, what was the real identity of those creatures? Power of chaos is writhing within your heart. Pain welled up in my chest like vomit. I staggered unsteadily and approached one of the Yogos. The moment my hand touched its slick body, its appearance changed to that of a tentacled cephalopod-type monster. Pages of the Ways of Survival flipped open in my head. Some nebulas deliberately nurture the cast-off skins of the lower-ranked old beings. They use these beings as sacrifices to fill up the necessary probability of the scenarios. My heart was beating much louder than before. Indeed, such sections did appear in the Ways of Survival. However, it never revealed which nebulas did such things even until the end. It can't be, it was the Emperor. Pilgrim Sun stopped right there. I looked up into the sky and sure enough, one of the constellations in charge of the heavenly worlds was busy making his descent. I wasn't sure of his name. Probably some loser like Metal Lord of the West or Lingji Bodhisattva or something. Well, there were literally hundreds of constellations with similar names like that in the Emperor, after all. Those Yogos are beasts that used to cultivate at the foot of Yonchai Mountain. However, they stole and drank the sacred oils from the great Layan temple where Buddha was residing and became Yogos as a result. Please, show them mercy and graciously pardon them of their sins and hand them over to. After realizing the truth, I finally understood why Emperor folks wanted to retrieve these so-called Yogos. From their perspective, these creatures must be like their resources. A must-have resource in order to operate the scenarios. A portion of judges are satisfied by the story's reflection of the original work. 5 additional points have been awarded. Judge Mehawang is yawning in boredom. The defeated Yogos either dying or reverting back to the property of the deities. That development, without a doubt, truly reflected what happened in the original work, something that hadn't changed in the past thousands of years. However, if that was the correct flow of events and the correct rules of the journey to the West, then... Whoa my. Then, what meaning was there to the lives of these Yogos? Judge, prisoner of the golden headband, is looking at you in puzzlement. When I didn't say anything for a while, the Lingji Bodhisattva opened his mouth once more. In any case, it is fine for me to take the Yogos away, yes. In the end, the narration decided to step in first. Sun Wukong nodded his head and towards the Lingji Bodhisattva. I can't let you do that. Said that he can't allow that. I sensed the angry gaze of the scenario master bearing down on me from the sky. It was a reproachful gaze, seemingly asking me what I was thinking of when making such a reply. The Lingji Bodhisattva was stunned just as much as she was, it seemed. What did you say? Whatever the case may be, you people don't look after these guys properly anyway. What are you talking about? You'll just mobilize these Yogos as extras in other fabled chambers. Judge Mehawang is looking at you with deeply intrigued eyes. Judge Baimon has closed the book he was reading and is now looking at you. Judge, prisoner of the golden headband, is paying attention to your words. The panicking Lingji Bodhisattva yelled out loudly. They are nothing more than simple Yogos. You're chasing after a greater purpose in this journey, so why are you minding the fate of these worthless creatures? They are folks who also carry out the scenarios as well. You're supposed to pursue Buddha's teachings or discuss the true meaning of the universe and be on the righteous path. So how come you're so disinterested in the lives of those that are not human? While saying such things, I began thinking about Han Su-yong. Did she already plan out the conclusion of this scenario? Many audience members are intrigued by your argument. Just like what Han Su-yong said earlier with her own mouth, She was the so-called genius-type writer who relied on the feelings of the moments to create the overall narrative. But that also meant she'd suffer the torture of creation, always wary of the potential responses the readers might display. Scenario Master is waiting for your next declaration. She probably had to participate in this scenario in a hurry and didn't enjoy the luxury of time to come up with a satisfying conclusion, nor to establish an overarching theme. Indeed, it'd be already pretty tough to create storylines that would constantly excite the audience members. But what if I aided her in her quest? I slowly got up and, while standing in front of the Yogos, raised my voice. I shall take these guys with me. As the Lingji Bodhisattva's expression was filling up with pure astonishment, I could also see the Yogos falling into confusion as well. There were some things that could only be seen from the perspectives of a writer or the reader, and some that could only be understood by being one of the main characters. Judge, prisoner of the golden headband, likes your unwillingness to concede defeat. Judge Baimon likes your unwillingness to concede defeat. Judge Meihuang likes your unwillingness to concede defeat. 150 additional points have been acquired. The theme of the applicable fable chamber is beginning to change greatly. Yogos were now looking up at me. A possibility of a new great fable is germinating. Shares for Outer God has been generated for the new great fable. As I expected, however, the messages didn't end there. The agreement with the Weni King is activating. In order to fulfill the agreement, you need to increase the shares of Outer God for the applicable fable to over 30%. Currently, shares of Outer God for the applicable scenario is 0.0003%. 0.0003%. As I began despairing at that nonsensical percentage, the Lingji Bodhisattva began yelling again in midair. You fool! You're truly boundlessly arrogant, aren't you? Do you think you're the real pilgrim son or some such? This Bodhisattva must have forgotten about his role for a second there, because he began pouring out powerful status at me. It was right after I had finished dealing with the great sage's probability, so I no longer possessed enough energy to contend with that. But just before the waves of status, fired like lightning bolts, could stab into me. Hey you, did you know that you sound exactly like Dakya Ajasi? Along with that voice, the lightning bolts split apart in the air. I looked around and saw that the sandy fog had died down already. My companions were approaching me from the distance. And then, Yu Yonghyuk was standing before me as if to shield me. He glared at the sky and pointed the dark heavenly demon sword, scattering electrical energy at the opponent. I won't say this twice, scram. Why, you bastards, this insult I will definitely. The Lingji Bodhisattva sweated buckets out of sheer fright and quickly disappeared, leaving Yu Yonghyuk to look at me with an icy expression. His dark heavenly demon sword was pointing at me next. Didn't I say I'll kill you if you don't behave yourself? My apologies. I've defeated the Yellow Wind Demon King. Congratulations. I began aiding the Yogos still collapsed on the ground. Warju, warju, warju. They stared at me in fear, but eventually came closer and sniffed my hands. However, they still scampered away in a hurry. Like some sort of abandoned puppies, they hid behind distant trees and began peeking around the corners at me from their hiding spots. A portion of abandoned Yogos are now following you. Yu Yonghyuk addressed me. You know that this is a meaningless action, right? The Emperor, Nebula, will retrieve them once this fable chamber is complete. I'm aware of that. Something like that has happened thousands of times to them. Your kindness means nothing to them. I'm also aware of that. They will perform the exact same roles in the exact same scenario in the future and forget all about you. They won't be able to remember anything about you. Do the ones that can't remember anything, I stared straight at Yu Yonghyuk and replied, also forget about their sorrow too? His eyes staring back at me trembled powerfully. I remained still as he continued to shiver. Was it because we had already reached the 94th scenario? His face was covered with quite a few scars now. You. Before he could form a proper sentence, the kids arrived first. When I took a closer look, though, our companions had ballooned up by one. As expected of my mast. No, hang on. You're the senior brother in this place, right? In any case, you were so cool. What was that technique earlier? Please teach me that. Her energetic voice caused my heart to ache even before I noticed it. Ah, I see. So you were our Sha Wujing then. Player 2, Nim has joined the group. Hi Sun Wukong. Hey, you sure know how to run your mouth, don't you? Yijai Hai, wearing a t-shirt with a large butterfly printed on it and chewing on bubble gum, lightly slapped me on the shoulder and extended her hand to me. And so, all the main actors of the journey to the west have finally gathered. I smiled faintly and extended my hand towards her. But then, my body suddenly collapsed as if the ground beneath my feet had disappeared. What's wrong with him? Yijai Hai hurriedly supported my collapsing frame. As the faintest trace of demonic aura leaked out from my body, my vision grew dim at the rate of knots. Your incarnation body has currently sustained great damage. Rate of outer god transformation is accelerating. Outer god transformation progress percentage, 71%. It seemed that there were that many days remaining in my happiness-filled journey. I shall take these guys with me. Han Suyong heard the words coming out of the display panel, and her jaw dropped to the floor. Her lemon candy rolled around on the floor. Yi Sujong happened to be tidying up the vicinity just then. She cautiously came closer and asked, "Did something happen?" Han Suyong remained utterly stupefied until then, but her lips finally began bobbing up and down a little. No, wait, that guy. She looked at the list of characters on the holographic display. Player 1, Yu Young-hyuk Nim, is playing the role of Zhu Beiji. Player 2, Yijai Hai Nim, is playing the role of Sha Wujing. Player 3, Yi Gil-yong Nim, is playing the role of Tang Sanzeng. Player 8, Watcher of the Light and Darkness Nim, is playing the role of Sun Wukong. She stared at that list for a very long time, then suddenly rubbed her eyes while tilting her head back. How long passed by like that? Han Suyong let out a noise and started cackling away. Yi Sujong cautiously asked her again, "Are you Black Flame Dragon right now?" No, I'm Han Suyong the moron actually. Han Suyong opened her eyes, her cheeks flushed ever so slightly. Holographic messages began rising up one after the other. The declaration made by the applicable individual is welcomed by many audience members. A portion of judges are awarding additional points for twisting clichés. Current ranking of the applicable fable chamber is 25th. You arrogant schmuck, who asked you for your help? Her fingertips pressing on the key panel for some reason looked more cheerful than before. Being number 1 is what I do best, you idiot. Episode 82, Outer God 1 Fin. Chapter 433, Outer God 2. The bitterness akin to the broth you'd get by boiling red ginseng spread inside my mouth. I ended up unknowingly smacking my lips, prompting a familiar voice to enter my ears. Looks like he's coming around. Put this in too. Someone forcibly pried my eyelids open and dropped a substance similar to eye drops on my eyeballs, causing a really cold sensation to spread out and help me regain my wits in an instant. Due to consuming new types of elixirs, your incarnation body's recovery has accelerated. My vision was restored, and I found myself lying against the belly of a horse. The white dragon horse, Chimera Dragon, of Tang Sanzeng neighed unhappily and glared at me. Oh, he's awake. I saw Yi Gil-yong's and Shin Yuseung's worry-filled faces brighten up. Yijai Hai, forcing my eyelids open, was grinning as well. Hey, what will we do with you when you're too frail to ride on a bus? You're supposed to serve your master, so it's no good for you to be this feeble, you know. The boy put his hands on his waists and fake coughed. I grinned bitterly and tried to prop my upper body up, and Shin Yuseung lent me a hand. Are you really all right? You fainted all of a sudden. I'm feeling better thanks to all of you. By the way, these elixirs. I looked at all the remnants of various elixirs around me. A few of them were unfamiliar, but there was also one that I did recognize. It was the eye drops contained in a reddish bottle, called 3 Flowers and 9 Fruits Sap. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, and was one of the treasures found within the journey to the west that could be earned by defeating the Yellow Wind Demon King. I was somewhat flustered by this and asked the kids, "Did you use that on me?" For a moment there, I thought I could see Yu Sangha's face and Shin Yu-seung's bright smile. The 3 Flowers and 9 Fruits Sap. Just by putting some in your eye, it restored energy in your body and expanded your eyesight. A portion of judges are satisfied by this attempt at reflecting the original work. 10 additional points have been awarded. Actually, it was Sun Wukong who ended up using the 3 Flowers and 9 Fruits Sap in the original storyline too. However, to think, they willingly spent an item on me that they could have used on themselves. For some reason, I felt guilty about it. I felt my right wrist getting numb, so I took a look, only to see something rather horrifying happening there. "You're just as weak as that bastard. What's the matter with your incarnation body?" Yu Younghyuk was holding my right wrist with enough force to pop it like a balloon while feeling for my pulse. Now that I thought about it, this guy possessed the next best medical skills after Yi CLHWA in our group. He scowled deeply as he continued to observe my condition. "Not a single blood vessel in your internal organs is intact. It's a miracle that you even managed to participate in this scenario." "Is that so? It's rare to see a constellation ending up in such a situation. Are you being chased by someone?" I looked at him with a bit of surprise. There was no way he'd ask me that out of concern, so, seeing how he was firmly grasping the dark heavenly demon sword with his free hand from a while ago, I could more or less figure out what he was planning to do here. "No, it's not like that. I was just in an urgent need for this great fable, so I didn't have enough time to recover my incarnation body. I shall end you right away if you prove to be a burden to this group even for a second." Yu Younghyuk discarded my wrist like trash and stood up from the spot. "Wasted precious elixirs." Yu Younghyuk strode away and settled down on a nearby boulder to polish the dark heavenly demon sword again. It had been broken once before, so its durability must have fallen by a quite lot now. Yijai, watching that, spoke to me. "My master, no wait, my senior brother is really cool, isn't he? Even though he's saying that, he was the first person to recommend using elixirs on you." That Yu Younghyuk did. I couldn't understand no matter how hard I thought about it. Even if I was Kim Dokya and not the Watcher of Light and Darkness, he wouldn't have. "He's not as cold-blooded as you think." I heard the dumpling 999's voice quietly enter my ear. "Do you still believe that you can understand someone through just a few lines of text in a couple of chapters?" 999 told me that not too long ago. He was right. Even though I knew his words were correct, I kept forgetting them over and over again. One's life would always be greater than a story written about him. Yu Younghyuk was always behind his comrades. There were countless paragraphs in the ways of survival, but they couldn't fully explain the time lived by Yu Younghyuk. Third turn, fourth, fifth. He always was looking at his comrades from a certain distance. He stood there and protected them and faced off against their enemies. Yu Younghyuk, were you able to protect everything you wanted to protect? Always, he failed to protect those he had to protect. Even then, he remained in the same spot. It was quite likely that I'd never get to fully understand the depths of his determination, even if I died and woke up again. Shin Yu-seung walked over to Yu Younghyuk, polishing his blade. "Younghyuk Hajase." He looked back at her with his trademark disinterested eyes, and her small hand pressed against his cheek. Upon closer inspection, a cream-type ointment was applied there. "What are you doing?" "Be still or it'll get infected, you know. Don't turn your head." Even without applying things like this. As if he was some kind of a vicious wild beast currently being tickled, Yu Younghyuk's expression became rather complicated. It took a single person's name to stop him from shooting up from his spot and leave. CLHWA, Unnie asked me to do it, you see. She said that Odyssey wouldn't care about stuff like this, so someone has to mind it for his sake. Yisialhwa's name caused his shoulders to flinch rather grandly. He seemed to be torn over his decision for a very long time, but then settled back down on the boulder awkwardly. He loudly declared in a charismatic voice next, "Finish it in 10 seconds or less." Shin Yu-seung giggled and nodded her head and began rubbing the ointment all over him energetically. His lips continued to twitch, but he didn't try to stop her. The wounds on his body healed at a visible pace after her hands brushed past them. As expected, Yisialhwa's remarkable ointment was something else indeed. Back in the original story, the mass production type maker even imported her ointment and sold them as a cosmetic product, too. What was its name again? Was it Purest White Fable Cream or something? Bubble hiss. My ears caught the sounds of onomatopoeia for the first time in a while, so I looked to my side to see what was what, only to find Yi Gil-yong and his figuratively blazing eyes there. As if he suddenly developed cross eyes, the boy began alternating his gaze between Yu Young-hyuk and Shin Yu-seung rapidly. Ho! Eventually, he began striding towards where the duo was in a vigorous fashion, as if he had made up his mind about something. Hey Shin Yu-seung. His calling prompted Yu Young-hyuk and Shin Yu-seung to look back at him simultaneously. Yi Jae-hai sidled up next to me and nodded her head, her expression one of contentment. Finally, Gil-yong, you have woken up. Judge Sakyamuni's successor likes these young Tang Sanzangs. A portion of audience members enjoy watching the adorable antics of Tang Sanzangs. 20 additional points have been awarded. Yi Gil-yong hesitated greatly where he stood, unable to do anything under the outpouring of attention other than bobbing his lips up and down. He had started this whole thing, but his expression clearly showed that he had no idea what to do next. In the end, he resorted to shouting out, his face flushed beet red. "I'm gonna apply Dakya Hyung's ointment from now on." As if he had finally realized what needed to be said here, he spoke in a triumphant voice next. "Got that? You'll be in charge of that sooty bastard from here on." Yi Jae-hai dashed forward before I even realized it and smacked the back of Yi Gil-yong's head. Unsurprisingly, the boy grandly face-planted nose first into the ground. "Why did you mention Kim Dakya there, you dumbass?" She pinched his ear and pulled him up to lecture him properly. Meanwhile, Shin Yu-seung watched the proceedings and shook her head, before returning to her job of applying the ointment. Yu Young-hyuk was stroking his cheek in awkwardness, as if he couldn't really get used to the cream on his skin. Kim Dakya watched all these happen with a quiet smile. The fourth wall is gradually getting thicker, as if he was looking at a spectacle happening in the distance. The smartphone inside my inner pocket was busy creating paragraphs on its own. As the texts floated up, I looked at my companions and thought to myself, right, maybe in that moment, Kim Dakya made up his mind over a certain something for the first time ever. The transformation into the outer god gradually sped up. What was once 71% soon became 75%, and it only took a proverbial blink to shoot past 80%. But when it got around to 85%, it suddenly came to a dead stop. It was all thanks to my companions looking after me. "Here, eat this, oh, and this too." As if it was inversely proportional to my infection rate, the scenario-clear speed of my companions actually accelerated gradually. As expected, the combination of the 94th scenario's Yu Young-hyuk and Yi Jae-hai was incredible to behold. Senior brother over there. Below us. As befitting the disciples of the Breaking the Sky swordsmanship, they were in perfect sync with one another. The majority of the enemies were taken care of even before they could approach us or come up with dastardly schemes against us. On top of that, they even resorted to using power levels that surpassed the scope of the original to suppress our enemies. Current rate of journey to the West's progress, 43%. Fable chamber ranking has improved. Current ranking of the applicable Fable Chamber is 21st. Judge, golden-bodied Arhat, is happy with his current appearance as a pretty young girl swordswoman. Shin Yuseung, now finding herself with nothing to do just like me, muttered to no one in particular. It'd been nice if Hui-Won Unni and Hyunseong Ajasi could come along too. It seemed that those two couldn't participate this time. Hyunseong wouldn't have woken up just yet. He had entered the final phase of steel transformation, so I figured that he'd be sleeping for a long while. However, there should be no problem in regards to his life. The real problem would be with after he had woken up, actually. Whatever the case might have been, I thought that this scenario could come to an end in less than 10 days at our current pace. And so yet another day came to a close, and then another one, and eventually 4 days went by. Current rate of journey to the West's progress, 64%. Current ranking of the applicable Fable Chamber is 15th. A high number of competitors are keeping a hostile eye on the applicable Fable Chamber. All I did during those 4 days was ride on the bus, sleep to my heart's content, chat with my companions about nothing important, and consume a ton of elixirs. Your incarnation body has recovered to a noticeable degree. Energy is returning gradually to your incarnation body. It felt like my cheeks had become fatter by a bit too. As I enjoyed this abundant, easygoing life, Yijai-hai, Shin Yuseung and Yi-Gil-yong all observed me with satisfied expressions on their faces, as if they were farmers feeling happy about a pig growing all fat and juicy, and the like. Here, eat this one too. Please take this. Why were they so happy about me consuming these things anyway? Yijai-hai to my side complained a little while chuckling out. They say that if you can't get a pheasant, then get a chicken instead. I mean, it's nice to see you eat well and be healthy, you know. If only we fed that guy as diligently as we're doing now. Time continued to tick by. Kyuhyuk, this isn't over, Zhu Beiji. We encountered Han Myung-oh playing different roles many times, and we even ran into a potential helper of ambiguous identity, sporting a wild beard as if he was some sort of a Taoist deity or something. I'm this mountain's deity spirit. I've learnt a long time ago that you are on a noble journey to India. I have been waiting for you to reach here so that I can provide you with a little bit of help. The kids cried out at the so-called deity spirit, blessed with a head full of bright blonde hair and the obviously fake beard. Hayong Unni. Hayong Hayong. Episode 82, Outer God 2 Fin. Chapter 434, Outer God 3. I'm not this Hayong or rather, but someone simply passing by. Damn it, hey disciple son, get over here and fetch this elixir already. The blondie mountain deity spirit promptly gave up on her acting and called out to me. Such a thing happened often back in the journey to the West. A portion of judges are complaining that such events didn't need to be imitated. One additional point has been awarded. A spirit would suddenly pop out of nowhere and help out the group, saying that it was the will of the Buddhanim or something similar. Such blatant acts of ignoring probability and deus ex machina ran rampant in the original journey to the West, so much so that I had to wonder whether it was the very first lump all lucky coincidences to one person type novel or not. I courteously bowed a little and spoke, "Thank you for helping us out always." Only doing it because I've been told to. Perhaps reminded of someone right now, Jang Hayong looked up at the sky with a resentful expression and muttered to no one in particular, "Count yourself lucky. If I hadn't been late, the role of the Demon King of Salvation would have been mine." That came out so naturally, didn't it? It seemed that this role was supposed to be Jang Hayong's. Why did you want to perform this role? She looked at me with distant eyes before shaking her head with a smirk. Well, yeah, you wouldn't know anything about how awesome the Demon King of Salvation actually is. I thought about it for a little while before speaking up with a voice overflowing with affection towards, myself. I also like the Demon King of Salvation very much. Oh, really? Have you heard some kind of fables about him then? For instance, the liberator of the industrial complex he earned in the demon world. Oh, wait. That must have flipped a switch in her somewhere, because Jang Hayoung suddenly started telling me a long-winded tale of her adventure. If I were to simplify the content somewhat, it went something like this. So like back then, I managed to rescue the dying Demon King of Salvation, you see. So when you get right down to it, I actually saved the Demon King of Salvation. So, it was fun, right? It was. In any case, we came to a mutual understanding right below the root of darkness and made a pledge of brotherhood. We worked together to liberate the industrial complex from the grips of a dastardly demon duke, and the story was more or less accurate, but I couldn't be sure why it felt like I was stuck listening to a novel being read here. And then the Demon King of Salvation looked at me with gloom-filled eyes and said, "My dear friend, become my warrior that will fight for my sake." I began wondering if it was all right to let a baseless story such as this one to float around, but messages suddenly floated up in the air en masse before I could do anything about it. Judge, prisoner of the golden headband, is criticizing the deity spirit's nonsense. Judge, prisoner of the golden headband, is arguing that it was him who performed the most heroics back in the demon world. Judge Meihuang is ridiculing the prisoner of the golden headband. Many audience members are getting interested in the Nebula Kim Dakya Company's fable. As things stood, I couldn't really tell apart whether we were in the journey to the West or Kim Dakya Company's disorganized great adventure get-together. Maybe that was what Han Soo-young was aiming for. As the Kim Dakya Company's fable grew stronger, the potential great fable we'd earned through this journey to the West remake would also become stronger too. Fables of the Kim Dakya Company are spreading throughout the star stream via word of mouth. Well, we'd have to wait and see if that was ultimately a good decision or not. How long passed by like this? Yijai yawned out of pure boredom and spoke up. "Arg, just finish up and hand over the elixir, will you?" Here, another week went by. We defeated countless Yogos and also faced off against the constellations from Emperor that showed up to retrieve those creatures afterwards. Those Yogos that you subjugated earlier were creatures that I raised in my Bakya. Scram! Yu Yonghyuk kicked them away instead of me. Seemingly wanting to avoid fighting the conquering king Zhu Beiji, Emperor's constellations went away willingly, even though they expressed their dissatisfaction over the matter. Outer God transformation progress percentage, 95%. Rate of your outer God transformation has been slowed down. The rate of becoming an outer God hadn't progressed all that much during that time. On the other hand, our group's rate of advancing through the journey to the West was shockingly fast. Current rate of journey to the West's progress, 94%. We had finally broken past the 90% mark. Yijai spoke while panting breathlessly. "Wow, now that was really tough." "It seems that way, especially for today." "What are you even talking about? You are just riding a bus, aren't you?" I ignored her retort and confirmed the Fable Chamber ranking instead. Current ranking of the applicable Fable Chamber is 4th. Score 21,912. Many audience members are marveling at the applicable Fable Chamber's stunning rate of growth. It hadn't even been 10 days, yet we had already brushed aside all the other, starrier chambers and climbed up to the 4th rank. I couldn't help but respect Han Soo-young's talent, even if I didn't want to. Current number 1 in the rankings is The Real Journey to the West. Score 30,408. With our current speed, I thought that it'd not be impossible to catch up to Fei Hu, currently the undisputed number 1 in the rankings. Of course, it was still too early to celebrate. The competition wouldn't end even if we managed to surpass Fei Hu's chamber and claim the top spot. Because the overall victor would be determined only after collating the total voted points and the judges' opinions. I looked up at the stars blinking high up in the night sky, at the constellations, currently listed as mere anonymous audience members. A portion of audience members are holding animosity towards you. Without a doubt, Emperor must be watching the rise of our ranking right now. The Pride Emperor feels about their great fable is enormous. They would never accept their great fable being inherited by a weak little nebula. Besides, there was a good reason for them to feel dissatisfied with us, too. Such as, there are a lot of them now, aren't they? The group of Yogos currently following us. The ranks of Yogos filling up the footpath of the mountain were so humongous that I couldn't even see their end anymore. Every single one of them were creatures we had spared. The agreement with the Weni King is underway. In order to fulfill the agreement, you need to increase the shares of Outer God for the applicable fable to over 30%. Currently, shares of Outer God for the applicable scenario is 15.772%. The journey to the west was marching closer to its end, yet the shares for the Outer Gods remained depressingly low. I had saved that many Yogos, but the percentage was only over 15. But then again, it was pretty obvious why. Sure, there were a lot of them, but they didn't impact our story all that much. Meaning, the core of the journey to the west hadn't changed. They had been participating as mere extras on this stage and not as its main actors. The only reason why their shares had risen past 15% was simply because many in the audience ended up paying attention to this rather abnormal situation. That was all. Many audience members are looking at the pilgrimage in awe. A portion of judges are focusing on the possibility of a new journey to the west. A small number of judges are worried about the perversion of the original. This march of the Yogos even earned a nickname to boot, the pilgrimage. Countless Yogos journeying to India so that they could become enlightened on their existence. A portion of audience members are entering the applicable scenario in order to view the pilgrimage. Heck, recommendations for our fable chamber even showed up in the journey to the west, recommendation bulletin board, too. Cool Zhu Beiji and Sha Wujing, adorable Tang Sanzeng, and the soft Sun Wukong. Author, Yuri 9158. Review, Zhu Beiji is so cool, and Tang Sanzengs are super cute too. I've become the retired SSSSS rank, a masterpiece that initially sounds like a mass-produced fable. Author, non-mass production type maker. Review, in all honesty, the real protagonists of the journey to the west are Yogos. Sun Wukong, Zhu Beiji, Sha Wujing, they are all Yogos. Yet the journey to the west's theme is infinitely closer to humanism. It's because all the Yogos appearing in the original had been humanized extensively from a human's perspective. Meaning, Yogos from the journey to the west had to live as humans after their status as Yogos had been stolen from them. It felt as if the names of the authors were kind of familiar, but that must be a mistake on my part, surely. Whatever the case might have been, we were getting quite a few puzzling recommendations. They are still following us. Shin Yuseung, walking at the rear of the group next to me, kept glancing behind her as if something was bothering her. She seemed to hesitate slightly, but then extended her hand out to a Yago acting like a puppy by her feet. Hi. I was slightly nervous about the Yago suddenly attacking her, but thankfully, what I feared didn't happen. Yago crouched like an obedient puppy and rubbed its nose against the tip of her fingers. This guy was no longer the terrifying outer god that I knew of. Soarm. They were not the demonic beasts that Shin Yuseung could tame. Well, outer gods weren't designated as one of those friendly life forms after all. They were simply things that lost their usefulness, wandering around on the outside of scenarios. Even then, Shin Yuseung carefully paid attention to them with a serious expression on her face. Yuseung. Name. Did she actually understand them? Could she understand their words and see what their real appearance was? I hesitated a little before asking her, "Aren't you afraid?" "Not at all. It's like when I keep looking at them, I find them kind of cute in a way." And small tentacles resembling those of an octopus tickled the back of her hand like a stoke of foxtail. A person I like appeared like this once before, you see. Suddenly, a short bout of migraine and dizziness rushed in along with a zing in my head. Exclusive skill. Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint Level 2 is forcibly activating. Maybe he could be here with us this time, too. I saw her determined eyes scanning the ranks of Yogos and bit down hard on my lip. Notice to all constellation nymphs currently participating in the scenario. An unannounced broadcast suddenly came from somewhere. The surrounding atmosphere trembled and Yogos all looked up at the sky with worried expressions. They coming, they coming, they coming, they coming. Don't like, don't like, don't like, don't like, don't like. Cries of the outer gods rose up from here and there. A great Dakibai appearing as a semi-transparent figure was being transmitted in the sky above. The Journey to the West remake scenario is gradually inching towards its conclusion. I heard that recently, due to the point gap between the upper ranks and the middle being too great, many constellation nymphs are halfway giving up on the scenario itself. What an ominous-sounding opening remark that was. Starstream is fair with its opportunities. An eel that struggles can become a dragon, and inversely, a dragon ruling the sky can also fall to the ground as well. For a moment there, the great Dakibai seemed to have glanced in our direction. So, ending things here would leave behind a bit of a sour taste, wouldn't you say? What's going on? Along with Yijai-Hai's loud yell, our surroundings began transforming. As the rays of bright light exploded, our group as well as the Yogos had been transferred to the bank of a massive river. Fable chambers are being consolidated. The I've become the retired SSSSS rank Sun Wukong has been incorporated into the Great Fable. Sun Wukong knew which river this was. They were now in the western riverbank of Tangshan River. This was the final hurdle before reaching India. The great Dakibai laughed. Deciding the first spot through just the score alone is not amusing. However, isn't finding out which fable is stronger the natural law of Starstream? Many audience members are cheering on and agreeing with that declaration. A small number of audience members are smacking their lips. A portion of judges are frowning at the interference of a great Dakibai. As the messages streamed in, large pillars of light began flashing in various spots of the riverside. 420 First Fable Chamber has been consolidated. The My Sun Wukong is broken from a certain point on, has been incorporated into the Great Fable. We found another group exactly like ours over there. The Stunsili Yigilyong shouted out, "Who are those people?" That group also featured Sun Wukong, Tang Sanzeng, Zhu Beiji, Sha Wujing, and the White Dragon Horse. Indeed, they were a Journey to the West expedition team from another Fable Chamber. 7133rd Fable Chamber has been consolidated. The I thought I was Sun Wukong, but I was just a regular monkey, has been incorporated into the Great Fable. 6523rd Fable Chamber has been consolidated. The Omniscient Sun Wukong Ruyi Bang's Viewpoint has been incorporated into the Great Fable. As the pillars of light continued to descend, many Sun Wukongs revealed themselves on the riverbanks. Some possessed weak status, while some others possessed mighty ones. And then, First Fable Chamber has been consolidated. The real Journey to the West has been incorporated into the Great Fable. Some even possessed an overwhelming status, too. Every single one making up that particular Fable Chamber was among the top elite of elite constellations. The Sun Wukong, currently ranked number 1, was looking over in our direction, his eyes burning in the pale blue ghostly flames. As expected, it had come down to this. I had been anticipating that something like this might happen, because, at the rate the things were going, Fei Hu's side would have lost to us in the points tally. A portion of judges are worried about your safety. Judge, prisoner of the Golden Headband, is furious at this development. Judge Baimon is getting curious about the conclusion of this scenario. Judge Mehawang orders you to sweep every one of these people away. Not only that, the main judges were already siding with us to boot, too. Indeed, that side probably had no choice but to do something before the situation worsened even further for them. Details of the main scenario have been updated. The voice of the great Dakibai resounded out next. And so, the final event of the Journey to the West remake will start now. Episode 82, Outer God 3 Fin. Chapter 435, Outer God 4. The final event of the Journey to the West remake will start now. Jiang Huiwen bit her lip as she listened to the voice coming out of the panel in the air. She wanted to be there as well. She wanted to fight alongside her companions. Hyunseong SSI. However, she couldn't go because of the man lying in slumber on the hospital bed. It was Yi Hyunseong, currently covered from head to toe in steel, with no signs of a heartbeat. He hadn't recovered from the damage he suffered during the Great War of Saints and Demons. The mirror next to the bed reflected Jiang Huiwen's hair, now half covered in a silver color. Another after-effect from the aforementioned Great War. You take a breather for a bit. I don't have any roles to give you anyway. She understood very well that this was Han Soo-young and her companions' way of showing their concern towards her. She had been inflicted with simply too heavy a wound. Both her body and mind were in a mess. She failed to rescue Kim Dokya again, and the man trying to protect her had fallen into a coma. That was how the sharpest blade in the Kim Dokya company had lost her edge. Her sword of judgment, resting against a corner of the bed, trembled noticeably. This weapon would vibrate only when evil was nearby, a weapon that Kim Dokya had gifted her. Its tip was pointing straight at the display panel. Perhaps it also knew that the place she should be right now wasn't here. Jiang Huiwen cautiously reached out, and as if to pacify the blade, embraced its hilt. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is looking at her incarnation with a helpless expression. As a result of the great war of saints and demons, both Eden and the demon world had collapsed. Countless archangels and demon kings died, and the justice Jiang Huiwen believed in couldn't be found there. Even then, she had to wield this sword. It was then that she felt a subtle movement on the bed. Hyunseong SSI. How long ago did it happen? Yi Hyunseong had opened his eyes and was staring at the display panel. His lips bobbed up and down, trying to say something. Excuse me. She pressed her head closer but still couldn't hear his voice. His lips moved slowly. She began recognizing the shapes of his lips. Can't lose. Again. Her fists clenched tightly once more. Her fury began rising up. Why was he being like this, even when his body had ended up in this state? Jiang Huiwen couldn't suppress her emotions any longer and was about to grasp his hand. But then, his entire body suddenly began transforming. He emitted blinding rays of silvery light, before shrinking down and becoming a single sword. What is this? She was so stunned that she inadvertently let go of this new version of Yi Hyunseong. Now lying on the bed, the blade Yi Hyunseong began sobbing, as if that was the only thing he could write now. She vacantly fell on her butt, lowered her head and muttered softly, "Just what are you trying to?" It was then when the hospital room's door flung open. She looked back to find Han Soo-young there, even though she should have been working as the scenario master. Jiang Huiwen. The moment she heard that voice, Jiang Huiwen's heart began beating even faster. And just like her, the sword of steel shuddered on top of the bed. She knew very well what the heart of that weapon was thinking about. Everyone had their own ways of enduring against the world. She slowly reached out to the steel sword and while tightly grasping its hilt, raised her voice. "You have a role available for me, yes." As the great Dakibai's voice resounded out, a new scenario window popped up in the air. Linked main scenario is starting. Main scenario 95, owner of the Journey to the West. Type main. Difficulty indeterminable. Clear condition. Break past the horde of Yogos and acquire the sacred texts on the other side of the Tangshan River. Time limit 2 hours. Reward, great fable related to the Journey to the West, 5 million coins. Failure. The applicable scenario contains a hidden piece. Almost at the same time, the water level of the Tangshan River swelled up rapidly. Walls of water rushed in like tsunami waves and instantly filled up the surroundings. Right afterwards, the screeches and howls of the Yogos blanketed the sky. Kill them, kill them, kill them, kill them, kill them. The horde boasted far greater numbers than the Yogos following us currently. Current shares of Outer God, for the applicable scenario, is 15.872%. The remaining Outer God shares to fulfill the agreement with the Weni King were 14.128%. Meaning I had to reach the rest of the amount during this event. Well. I looked back to see the Yogos making up the pilgrimage, with us were howling out towards the sky. Well then, I shall be anticipating a wonderful finale to this scenario. The great Dakibai vanished, and as more pillars of light descended, the protagonists from other Journey to the West began making their entrance. Let's go. The sacred texts are ours. The crowd from all the consolidated fable chambers were scything past the Tangshan's waters to advance forward. I'm the real Sun Wukong. Some rode on the somersault cloud, while others resorted to magic spells to fly over the river's tumbling water. It seemed that they were planning to cross this river by gliding over it. Unfortunately, that was a really bad decision to make, if my knowledge on the Journey to the West was correct. All skills and stigmas related to flight are restricted from use in the applicable scenario. Powerful sparks danced in the sky, and everyone flying in the air crashed into the river below along with their screams. What's the meaning of this? After falling into the river water, the members of other fable chambers began shouting in anger at the great Dakibai up in the air. However, it simply shrugged its shoulders nonchalantly. I looked at this spectacle and spoke up. This journey wouldn't have any meaning to it if we were allowed to fly from the beginning. Yu Yonghyok next to me muttered out as if he was chewing on his words. Everything happening here is also destined to become a fable, is it? That's correct. In the end, the Journey to the West was a story of traveling on a tough road in great adversity. Even if you were traveling on the same road, choosing how to travel changed the story greatly. Traversing the distance that could be bridged in one day by riding on the somersault cloud for over 14 years while surviving and enduring against all sorts of trials and tribulations. Because such a fable existed, the sacred texts at the end of the journey now had meaning to its existence, too. And so, the final hurdle to this very story was waiting for the traveling group. Yi Gilyong heard the narration and softly grumbled to himself. I'm not very good at swimming, though. The Tangshan River was truly wide. Since not everyone could ride on the back of Tang Sanzang's white dragon horse, we had to swim across the river to get to the other side. For sure, several teams had already jumped into the water and started swimming vigorously. It was unknown where those things had been acquired, but well, some teams were busy paddling their boats forward, while some others were riding on logs, propelling themselves forward by using wind magic. Yijai watched that unfolding spectacle and lightly slapped the boy's shoulder before stepping forward. Hey, don't worry about it. We aren't going to do that. Along with her confident voice, a new message came from the sky above. An audience member is revealing himself. Constellation, Maritime War God, is nodding his head. I had completely forgotten about him. Come, Geobuxian. Great Fable, Next City, has begun its storytelling. Yijai raised her twin dragon soared up high into the sky. The river water before us parted in the middle, and the hull of a massive battleship rose up to the surface, accompanied by a magnificent light show. Several incarnations, getting swept up by the waves, screamed out. What the hell, what's this? The battleship sporting a turtle-like back and the head of a dragon, the turtle dragon. The star relic Yijai and the kids earned by clearing the next city scenario revealed itself before our very eyes. However, I couldn't help but wonder if it was okay for us to ride that, because in the Journey to the West, Star Relic, Turtle Dragon, corresponds with the Journey to the West remake. As the group fell into danger and struggled to move forward, a gigantic white turtle Yago appeared to give them a ride. A portion of judges are satisfied by the minutely detailed reflection of the original story. 20 additional points have been awarded. To think that such an event happened in the Journey to the West, what an excellent development that was. We quickly climbed aboard the battleship. Set sail. Along with Yi Jai-Hai's loud yell, the battleship rapidly advanced forward while splitting the river water. The teams crossing the water before us all looked at the battleship with dazed, forlorn faces. Although unfortunate, we didn't have the leeway to worry about them at the moment. Unnie, please do your best not to harm the Yogos. Don't worry. I couldn't tell where she learned to drive, but well, Yi Jai-Hai utilized her preternatural driving skill to evade the horde of Yogos rushing at us. Not only that, the Yogos trying to attack us with animosity flinched and stopped after spotting all the other Yogos riding on our ship. Who are Oguwais? A portion of the Yogos that joined the pilgrimage were hanging on the battleship, while the rest was crossing the river right behind the vessel. Perhaps these creatures interfered with their own journeys. The Sun Wukongs from other fable chambers began wielding their Rui bangs. Those sons of bitches. The enraged Yi Jai-Hai clenched her fists tightly, but it was not possible to save everyone. The deaths of Yogos were unfolding all over the Tangshan River after all. Guayarok. The members of other fable chambers advanced forward while slaughtering Yogos blocking their paths. Yago's flesh and blood rained down from everywhere. A high number of audience members are cheering on this spectacle of slaughter. Yogos continued to die, the monsters that didn't earn their meanings because they failed to create their fables. They were sacrifices offered up to complete this Journey to the West. The novel, Journey to the West, a lengthy journey for the goal of transcending one's humanity. To let the audience watching the fable reach enlightenment of their own, Yogos had to be buried under this Tangshan River's waters. Kill them all. These protagonists of the Journey to the West, supposedly walking on the road of enlightenment, used the dead Yogos as their bridge and tried to cross the Tangshan River. Innumerable Yogos became their footholds, and those unfortunate protagonists from some fable chambers who got killed off also became another foothold for someone else. Sadly, no one would remember the names of the footholds. Our Sinoris are. I wanted to continue, but if only they could live. And if only they could become the main characters of this great fable. Myongo Ajasi, just stay still, will ya? I'm telling you it's safe here. Safe my ass, you think I'll fall for that again? Stigma, one-legged swift horse LV, is ready to activate. Whether one's leg was cut off or its arm was lost, that creature would be remembered by this world. 7,133rd Fable Chamber's entire roster has been annihilated. 487th Fable Chamber's entire roster has been annihilated. With every passing second, the number of Fable Chambers being ejected continued to increase, and as if to proportionally match that figure, the number of Yogos crashing down also increased exponentially. Save him, save him, save him, save him, save him. Currently, shares of Outer God for the applicable scenario is 15.773%. The Outer God shares that I worked so hard to increase began dropping little by little, even though so many Yogos still remained. Currently, shares of Outer God for the applicable scenario is 14.973%. And then, the shares began tumbling down at an alarming rate next. Currently, shares of Outer God for the applicable scenario is 14.473%. But then again, maybe it was an obvious result. Because they were villains to be defeated in this world, not its main characters. Perhaps he noticed the direction of my gaze. Yu Yonghyuk suddenly began talking to me. Surely, you fool must have realized this. You can't save everyone. Those words hurt especially more, because they came from Yu Yonghyuk himself. Like what you said earlier, it's because this is a fable. His eyes were now looking at the dead Yogos beneath the surface of the water. Because this was a fable, not everyone could be saved. I knew exactly what those words meant. Not everything in this world can become its protagonist. Episode 82, Outer God 4. Chapter 436, Outer God 5. An extra couldn't become a main character. And the outer gods couldn't even serve as the extras, so they were being forced out of the fable. The dying Yogos were looking up at us. I could also do it, I could also do it. Captain, 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 captain. Womai, 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 womai. Yu Yonghyuk couldn't hear those voices. I thought that might be a good thing. All you can do right now is to let everyone know that they exist here. He stared past the fog-covered Tangshan River and spoke. With that, you have done everything you set out to do. What I set out to do. As if to respond to our conversation, the narration suddenly began yapping on. The best they could do was to let the world know that Yogos were in this place. Perhaps Han Suyong was feeling as much indignation and grief as I had. The Tangshan's water rained down, corpses of Yogos floating away on the river's surface. Many audience members are resonating with the theme of I've become the retired SSSSS grade Sun Wukong. A portion of judges are currently feeling melancholic. Extras were just that, extras, while the main character would be the main character. A story where everyone could become its protagonist didn't exist. I knew that. Judge, prisoner of the golden headband, is repeatedly grabbing and letting go of his hair. Judge Baimon is contemplating on the lives of the Yogos. Judge Mehawang is asking, although he isn't sure if they could all be saved. However, even if that was true, shares of Outer God are tumbling lower at an alarming rate. Current shares of Outer God for the applicable scenario is 13.473%. I just couldn't be satisfied with this result and end it here. Scenario Master is now looking at you. It seemed that perhaps Han Suyong was thinking along the same line. It's the turtle, steal it. Several uninvited guests clambered up on the side of the turtle dragon and shouted out. They were from other fable chambers, feeling envious of our ship. Get rid of them as soon as we kill. Unfortunately for them, they picked the wrong opponents today. Slice. Yijaihai's twin dragon sword sliced off the head of a hapless Sun Wukong that landed on the deck. Judge Mehawang is rubbing his neck with a spooked expression. The Sun Wukong who lost his head fell back into the river water, unable to even mouth a scream. Sha Wujing and Zhu Beiji freaked out from that sight, roared out loudly, and landed on the deck next. You insolent! Seeing that you're still sticking to the script, you guys aren't going to win. Yijaihai's kendo mercilessly slashed out and split the air apart, while Yi Gilyong and Shin Yuseung also ran to her sides to use their experienced fists and kicks to punt other incarnations off the deck. Chimera Dragon had morphed into a full-on dragon horse and flapped its wings to create a powerful gust of wind. You measly little! Yu Yonghyuk had already climbed up to the highest point in the ship by then. He unsheathed his weapon with an icy-cold expression. Sparks danced violently on the blade of his dark heavenly demon sword, breaking the sky thunder blade. His sword attack, capable of even shattering the heavens, slammed into the waters of the Tangshan like a thunderclap. Quack! Incarnations were roasted black by the azure-blue lightning and exploded like fireworks. Only then the surviving ones realized the severity of their current situation and yelled out to each other. How the hell can a Zhu Beiji be that strong? See, could it be that Pixie is? It's them. They are the main characters from I've Become the retired SSSSS grade Sun Wukong. It seemed that our identity had been exposed now. Hidden information of the scenario is now open to the public. Your Fable Chamber ranking will rise up by defeating the main characters from another Fable Chamber with a higher ranking. Even if we don't get our hands on the sacred texts, our ranking will rise if we just kill them. After reaching the higher rankings, Even if they didn't win the event, they could still enjoy quite the amount of rewards. Kill him, hunt down that Zhu Beiji first. Dozens of actors rushed in towards the battleship while stepping on the corpses of the Yogos. Some of them happened to be quite powerful incarnations as well as constellations. I urgently looked back at my companions, but they didn't seem to be flustered at all. I guess it might get a little more entertaining now. Sun Wukong, be still and stay back. Yijai grinned and unleashed her status. Great Fable, Next City, has begun its storytelling. Constellation, Maritime War God, is revealing his status. Under Yi Gilyong's and Shin Yuseung's control, the dragon horse regained its former appearance of the Jade Dragon. Kuo. At the same time, energy from powerful fables exploded out of my companions' incarnation bodies. Great Fable, Demon World Spring, has begun its storytelling. Great Fable, Torch that Swallowed the Myth, has begun its storytelling. The Chimera Dragon breathed out fire from the sky and dissipated the Tongshan's waters, and Yu Yonghyuk dashed in and out among the rising screen of vapor. Slice, slice. Every time jet black light flashed, Sun Wukong's and Zhu Beiji's with unknown names died in droves. I shuddered from that sight. I knew that my companions were powerful, but I still didn't expect them to be this strong. This was the result of them surviving many nonsensical scenarios up to this point. QAG. Participating in the 95th scenario together didn't mean that everyone's level was the same. It was rather similar to the journey to the West itself. People's methods of reaching its end destination were all different. Some wanted to fly in comfort, while some would only select the easiest roads to walk on. However, the members of the Kim Dakya Company were different. They arrived at this point in time through the hardest method there was. They couldn't fly, nor could they choose to tread the easiest paths. They walked on their own two legs again and again. They beat back many unfair trials and tribulations, endured against misfortunes, and while holding back their grief, they reached this far with their own strengths. And the result of that was this. This story's true protagonists were them, receiving the blinding light of grace belonging to the great fables. As I bore witness to this spectacle, I began recalling a certain old memory. That place back in the 1863rd turn was also the 95th scenario. I wanted to show this to Han Soo-yong of the 1863rd turn. I wanted to tell her, just like how you had proved it to me, there were people here who also had survived as well. This is the story of the third turn that you don't know. Yu Yonghyuk number 999, sitting on my shoulder, was also watching this unfolding spectacle. What would the one who lost his own regression turn and entered this world line think about after taking in this sight? Fable Chamber ranking has risen up. Score 25,912. Current ranking of the applicable Fable Chamber is third. Many audience members and judges are awarding additional points. Our Fable Chamber's ranking climbed really quickly. It seemed there were a few actors from higher-ranked Fable Chambers than ours mixed in among all the assailants coming after us. Fable Chamber ranking has risen up. Score 26,412. Current ranking of the applicable Fable Chamber is second. Finally, second place. We had brushed aside thousands of other chambers and finally reached the cusp of victory. That only served to make me more anxious, however. Current shares of Outer God for the applicable scenario is 13.142%. Even as the real protagonists were leaving their mark, the deaths of those relegated to the role of extras continued on unabated. So, the shares of the Outer Gods continued to plummet. In order to fulfill the agreement of the Weni King, the shares had to exceed 30%. Even if our chamber won this Great Fable event, everything would go back to square one if I failed to uphold that agreement. Boom! The hull of the battleship was rocked to the side just then. Powerful magical cannon shells were raining down from beyond the fog of the battlefield. What the hell, which arseholes? Yijai quickly regained her balance and activated her stigma. Character Yijai has activated the Ghost Fleet LV-10. A dozen phantom ships rose up on either side of the Turtle Dragon and commenced firing at once. Caught between the exchange of a vast number of cannon shells, the incarnations and yogos in the surroundings were vaporized without a chance to even scream in pain. Soon the shelling stopped, and dozens of battleships revealed themselves from the murky fog of the cannon smoke. Constellation, Maritime War God, is gasping out. Kugagagugu. Those ships had surrounded ours in a crane wing-like formation. Even if the Maritime War God was an excellent constellation when it came to naval warfare, there simply were way too many enemies this time. Not only that. Fei Hu. As I listened to Yu Jung-hyuk's heavy voice, I spotted a certain someone standing on the gunwale of the opposing ship. The protagonist of the Fable Chamber ranked number 1, The Real Journey to the West, was there. It seemed that they had prepared the battleships in advance, and their numbers vastly outstripped ours. Aren't they Fable-grade constellations? We also spotted other members of the Real Journey to the West. As expected, the roles of Zhu Beiji and Sha Wujing were played by Emperor's constellations. Zhu Beiji was played by the master of the three-pointed double-edged spear, Erlang Shen. Meanwhile, it seemed that the actor for Sha Wujing was the third son of Vaisravana, Prince Nezha. They were actual characters from the original Journey to the West, and Sun Wukong's old foes as well. It was not for nothing that the saying of "victory is already Fei Hu's" did the rounds back in the original Ways of Survival. The actual constellations from the Journey to the West made their appearance as Fei Hu's team members, so it was only obvious that the constellations from other chambers didn't even stand a chance against them. A portion of audience members have revealed their identities. Constellations of the Nebula Emperor are looking at Fei Hu's battlefield. Not only that, even the lights from the constellations of the 28 mansions were glittering behind them too. Those gazes, implying that they'd enter the battlefield at any given moment, presented us with incredible pressure just by being there. Yu Jung-hyuk scanned the battlefield and spoke, "I don't see their Tang Sanzang." Now that he mentioned it, I couldn't see their Tang Sanzang either. The one to receive the sacred texts in the original story was Tang Sanzang, so they wouldn't have stashed him somewhere safe under the current Sidhu. No, hang on. If the person tasked with retrieving the sacred texts was supposed to be Tang Sanzang, then I think something is busy running away over there. At the place Yi Gil-yong pointed at, we could see battleships hurriedly distancing themselves away from here. It seemed that a portion would remain behind and block us, while the rest would set sail towards the sacred texts, which meant that Fei Hu's Tang Sanzang was somewhere among those fleeing ships. They are planning to secure the sacred texts while wasting our time here. Yijai loudly yelled out, "Damn it, I'll take care of this place, so go ahead." One of the ships from the Ghost Fleet came to our side, and Yu Jung-hyuk, Yi Gil-yong, Shin Yu-seung and I climbed on board it. The phantom ship then also began rushing forward in great haste. Qa. I wasn't worried about Yijai. She was now a respectable admiral. As long as the battle was fought on water and not anywhere else, she'd not lose even if she failed to eke out a victory. The real problem was with this side. One of the enemy battleships accurately blocked our route and stuck close to our side. And it was the ship containing Fei Hu and his comrades. "So you are the Kim Dak-ya company." This particular son, Wukong, had piercing blue eyes. He stared at us as if he had just discovered strange life forms. Yu Jung-hyuk unsheathed his dark heavenly demon sword once more and stood in front of us, wary of his new opponent. Constellation, master of three-pointed double-edged spear, is unleashing his status. Constellation, third son of Vaisravana, is unleashing his status. They must have decided to give up on their roles at this point. Both Erlang Shen and Prince Nezha began sending warning signals in our direction from the get-go. That wasn't all. Constellations of the 28 mansions of the Nebula Emperor are preparing to descend. Lords of the 9 stars of the nebula, Emperor, are preparing to descend. Godamit. I spoke sarcastically. I guess you can't do anything without your nebula's help. Emperor is me, and I'm Emperor. It's even more foolish not to utilize what's yours already. Even the current Yu Young-hyuk wouldn't be able to deal with the situation if both the 28 mansions and the permanent fixture of the sky, 9 stars, decided to descend here. Besides, they were the original characters from Journey to the West, so they didn't even need to spend all that much probability to enter, either. Goddammit, we were basically trapped in the playground set in Emperor's backyard. There is one thing I wish to confirm, however. Fei Hu pulled out his Rui Bang and began unleashing his real status. The candidate for the strongest incarnation back in the original Ways of Survival, Fei Hu. I had seen his face several times before today, but never did we get into a conflict with him until now. But that made sense, considering that he was the Gold Spoon incarnation greatly coddled and protected by Emperor. Great Fable, inheritor of the Heavenly Palace, has begun its storytelling. Great Fable, survivor of Great War of Righteous and Evil, has begun its storytelling. Fei Hu had diligently earned his own great fables in places we weren't aware of, while receiving support that was on another scale compared to ours. Great Fable, successor of Chiyu, has begun. Shin Yuseung watched those fables appear and muttered out as if she was puzzled by something. Isn't Chiyu a Korean fable? Perhaps that got under his skin. Fei Hu scowled deeply and flung a sword aura in our direction. Yu Young-hyuk blocked that, accompanied by the loud clang. The crack in the dark heavenly demon sword grew even more noticeable. Fei Hu's eyes flickered as if he was amused by something. Not bad, so you're that Zhu Beiji. Fei Hu was strong. However, the current Yu Young-hyuk was more than enough to defeat him, no matter how strong he was now. The actual problem laid with the dark heavenly demon sword. With his main weapon damaged, Yu Young-hyuk wouldn't even be able to exert 70% of his overall strength. I heard that Korea's greatest incarnation is with Kim Dokya Company. That must be you then. As if he was waiting for this moment, Yu Young-hyuk stepped forward. Yu Young-hyuk versus Fei Hu. The battle of the century was about to get underway. However, I couldn't continue riding the bus and spectate anymore, because that side still had Erlang Shen and Prince Neju as well. Current incarnation body recovery rate, 71%. Outer God transformation rate, 96%. Rate of outer God transformation currently is in a slowed down state. Unfortunately, there was no way I could fight against those two in my current condition. Shiururung. The first one to make their move was Fei Hu's camp. Prince Neju's palpes emitted gloriously brilliant rays of light, while a stunning level of status exploded out from Fei Hu's body. At the same time, a clump of light suddenly wavered in the air. Player 9 Nim has joined the I've become the retired SSSSS grade Sun Wukong as an extra. A new actor at such a late stage. Kagagugu. As the lightning crashed down, a person appeared on top of the phantom ship's cabin. The light from the lightning cracking in the dark, gloomy skies drew a lengthy shadow. A slender figure stood there. A pair of giant horns rose above this person's head. Player 9 Nim's role is Bull Demon King. The Bull Demon King. Now that I thought about it, I had forgotten that such a role existed. He was a sworn brother and a comrade in arms of the great sage Heaven's equal, Sun Wukong. They did fight each other in the original story, but in our fabled chamber of become the retired SSSSS grade Sun Wukong, he had not made his appearance yet. In that case, just who would take on that role? Voting rights are being distributed to the members of Kim Dokya Company. A portion of members are unable to participate in the voting. Only those able to vote will participate. The moment I heard those words, the inside of my head blanked out. Incarnation, Yi Jai-hai, is agreeing with the judgment. Incarnation, Shin Yuseung, is agreeing with the judgment. Incarnation, Yi Gil-yong, is agreeing with the judgment. Incarnation, Jiang Huiyuan, is agreeing with the judgment. Incarnation, Han Suyong, is agreeing with the judgment. Incarnation, Yu Yonghyuk, is agreeing with the judgment. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry as I watched the windows containing messages continue to pop up. Will you use your voting right for the hour of judgment? I saw the faces of my companions under the cascading shower of light. I wanted to speak to them so badly. However, I simply couldn't. Instead, this was all I could do for them right now. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is agreeing with the judgment. For a moment there, unreadable expressions floated up onto the faces of my companions. A heavy silence descended on the flowing waters of Tangshan River. Another bolt of lightning crashed down, and Jiang Huiyuan lightly jumped off from the top of the ship's cabin. I thought that her shoulders trembled imperceptibly as her feet landed on deck, but they regained their calmness soon after. Everyone able to participate in the voting has agreed with the judgment. Hour of Judgment is activating. Jiang Huiyuan slowly raised her head and opened her lips to speak. We can still fight. Episode 82, Outer God 5 Fin. Chapter 437, Outer God 6. Can still fight. Jiang Huiyuan declared as thus and stepped forward while emitting calm, still status. Meanwhile, Nebula chat messages entered my ear. Dakya Hyung is still alive. Yi Gilyong said that. He may not be here, but he's still looking at us from somewhere. Shin Yuseung nodded her head. On the other hand, a warning message was resounding in my head. Outer God transformation rate, 96.1%. Outer God transformation rate, 96.3%. The rate was suddenly climbing up rapidly. The Wenny King is doubting the agreement you two have made. The reason why I didn't immediately transform into an outer god was because, even though my companions knew that the Demon King of Salvation was alive somewhere, they didn't know that the person playing Sun Wukong me was their real Demon King of Salvation. My deal with the Wenny King stated that I should not reveal myself to the Kim Dakya company, after all. Outer God transformation rate, 97.1%. Perhaps something was in his mind, because Yu Yonghyuk was silently staring up at the sky. Jiang Huiyuan placed her hand on his shoulder and walked forward. He spoke in a weighty voice. You alone will not be sufficient. No, I'm more than enough. Her refreshing grin imparted the feeling of her being utterly dependable right now. Exclusive skill, Hour of Judgment, has received Kim Dakya Company's blessing. Her Hour of Judgment was no longer influenced by Eden or those sitting on the absolute good spectrum. Her blade now only needed to borrow from Kim Dakya Company's probability, and it was currently pointing at the targets of her judgment. Nebula Emperor is unhappy at the unannounced participation of the applicable role. The members from Emperor seemed to be taken aback by Jiang Huiyuan's sudden intrusion. Fei Hu tilted his head and stared at her. And who you might be. Was it you? The one who was looking for Korea's best incarnation. Right at the end of those words, Jiang Huiyuan's figure dashed forward like an arrow. Fei Hu panicked and quickly raised his Ruyi Bang, blocking her sword strike just in time. The friction sound of Kwadu Duck, resounding out, was unusually heavy. He frowned deeply as his body slid back quite some ways. That is a pretty heavy sword. However, that isn't the Bull Demon King's weapon, is it? Correct. Jiang Huiyuan's hands were gripping a steel sword that no one had seen before. It was not the Bull Demon King's weapon, or for that matter, Jiang Huiyuan's own sword of judgment, either. Player 10 Nim is participating in I've Become the Retired SSSSS Grade Sun Wukong as an extra. NG. Player 10 Nim's role is Rui Jingu Bang. Just as I began thinking that such a role shouldn't even be possible, her sword suddenly extended in an abnormal fashion. It was like watching the actual Rui Jingu Bang that weighed 13,500 June. What is this? Her sword continued to extend. 10 meters, 20, 30, 40. Her hands tightly grasped the sword that grew to a truly nonsensical length. Exclusive skill, God-slaying LV3 is activating. The God-slaying, the higher-ranked skill derived from demon-slaying after she evolved into the Judge of Apocalypse. The violent power of chaos flowed viciously within the steel sword, now hundreds of meters long. The world seemed to vibrate slowly, and her hands moved from left to right. Fei Hu sensed something deeply ominous at that moment and loudly shouted out towards the other constellations. Evacuate now. Some managed to reflexively escape, but the majority didn't even know what befell them. A single silvery line drew along the impressively vast river's surface, and every single battleship in the vicinity exploded into bits and pieces in a loud screech. Nebula Emperor is astonished by the strength of Bull Demon King, the truly gobsmacking firepower that could set the surface of water ablaze, turning it into a sea of flames with just one attack. That wasn't Jiang Huiwen's power alone. The steel sword vibrated within her hands. I recognized that weapon right away. Although it was impossible to talk to the guy since he had entered weapon mode via steel transformation, he was without a doubt Yi Hyunseong. Jiang Huiwen ran on the burning surface of the river and shouted back at us. Go, leave this place to me. She not only stopped Fei Hu's advance, but also that of Erlang Shen and Prince Nezha. Having sensed the enormous fighting spirit flooding out from her entire figure, I looked back at my companions and spoke up. Let's get going. For sure, I'd be able to leave this battle to the current Jiang Huiwen. Do your best, Nuna. You should escape if things look bad. Yijai-Hai's phantom ship quickly disembarked. Behind us, Fei Hu was roaring out in anger after being blocked by Jiang Huiwen. We didn't care and continued to scythe past the Tongshan's dense fog. We then spotted Fei Hu's Tang Sanzang hurriedly escaping up ahead of us. Location of the sacred text is close by. We could sense the gazes of the audience and the judges on top of us. Many in the audience are focusing on your fable. Judge, prisoner of the golden headband, is telling you to work a little bit harder. Judge, cleanser of altars, is cheering on as his belly fat jiggles around. 100 additional points have been awarded. Thanks to Yijai-Hai and Jiang Huiwen's hard work, the point gap between Fei Hu's chamber and ours had pretty much disappeared. If we manage to scoop up the sacred texts first, then we should become the winner of Journey to the West remake. It was right then that the skis of all 4 cardinal directions distorted. Nebula, Emperor S28 mansions are making their descent. From all directions of the blackened sky, 28 stars shot down to where we were. Evade it. Yu Yonghyuk and I each grabbed Yi Gilyong and Shin Yuseung and flung ourselves into the river. Along with the explosive noise of the Tongshan itself blowing up, our phantom ship shattered and sunk beneath the water. We found debris floating on the river's surface and managed to barely grab hold of it. Wuake, hey, I can survive by myself, so let me go. Yi Gilyong kicked around and shouted out. We stepped onto our own floating debris, and in the meantime, 28 stars were blocking our way forward. What an incomprehensible bunch of people. Why do you stain this noble story with the blood of Yogos? You're not qualified to complete this great fable. They were openly declaring their intentions to hinder us. I expected this to happen, but now that Emperor had come out like this, I couldn't help but feel dismayed somewhat. A portion of the audience members are complaining about the unfairness to the constellations of Emperor. Lodging complaints wouldn't change anything. Whatever the case might have been, the Journey to the West was Emperor's great fable, and they wouldn't want to lose it to other nebulas. From the get-go, this event was created for the incarnation of Emperor Fei Hu. The only reason why other incarnations and constellations were allowed to participate was simply to enhance the status of the entire fable itself and turn this event into a proper scenario. This was a game where Fei Hu had been decided as its final winner beforehand. As for the ensuing dissatisfaction of constellations and their nebulas, simply supplying them with coins and adequate enough fables as compensations would calm them down pretty quickly. That was the truth behind this Emperor Plan Journey to the West remake, and other constellations already had some idea without being explicitly told about it. Even if you participate, you can't win, but we will compensate you accordingly. Why do you insist on disrupting the order of the scenario? You have already climbed up to second place, yet are you still not satisfied by the number of votes? In that regard, it was the same thing as us already crossing that unspoken line that Emperor had drawn. It's not too late to back down. If you do, we will not confiscate the fable you have compiled up to this point. One of the directions of the 28 mansions, 7 mansions of the Azure Dragon of the East, Horn Mansion, Neck Mansion, Root Mansion, Room Mansion, Heart Mansion, Tail Mansion, Winnowing Basket Mansion stepped forward and unleashed their status. The strengths of the individual constellations hovered between bottom-tiered fable grade or historical grade, but the real problem was when they were together like this. Azure Dragon of the East, 7 mansions. Black Tortoise of the North, 7 mansions. White Tiger of the West, 7 mansions. Vermilion Bird of the South, 7 mansions. These were the guardian constellations tasked with defending Emperor, as well as the enforcer of the Jade Emperor himself. Even back in the journey to the West, they got into conflict with the Great Sage Heaven's equal. Constellations of 28 mansions are unleashing their status. When 28 stars all released their light simultaneously, the waves of truly blinding status smashed into us in full. Even if they were individually nothing more than historical grade, with that much aura. Shirurung. Yu Yonghyuk unsheathed his sword and stepped forward. He glanced at me as he did so. Take the kids away and acquire the sacred texts. That prompted Yi Gilyong to shout out as if he was having a breakdown. Who's taking who here? I. The boy's lips snapped shut after he sensed Yu Yonghyuk emitting his status. His jet-black coat danced in the air. It was as if he had suddenly transformed into a black hole. His back faced us as he stood there against the lights shining from 28 stars. That was the back of a man who had been silently protecting certain people. Yi Gilyong faltered a little after being overwhelmed by that and muttered out softly, "Let's go." Even if it was Yu Yonghyuk, there was no guarantee of victory against the entirety of the constellations of the 28 mansions. However, we had no choice but to believe him. The current him was strong enough to fight against Lokapala's best, Indra. I nodded my head and replied, "Do your best. Get going." Yu Yonghyuk's dark heavenly demon sword carved out a path on the border where the river and the sky met. Breaking the sky swordsmanship. In our mysteries. Split the dark ocean. One sword strike that cut the ocean of the night. Like the miracle of Moses, the river's water dispersed and the pathway to the front split apart. Several stars failed to dodge the strike in time, and they were sunk under the water as a consequence. How can such a nonsensical status be? You bastard! The astonished 28 mansions roared out and quickly scattered. Yu Yonghyuk didn't wait and continued to swing his sword about during that space of time. Breaking the sky thunder sword. A makeshift raft made out of floating debris was dashing forward on the road created by Yu Yonghyuk's lightning. Chimera Dragon. The dragon horse powerfully flapped its wings. A powerful gust of wind caused the raft containing me, Yi Gilyong and Shin Yuseung to shoot forward. Even though the number of passengers had decreased, the speed of the voyage was so great that it actually consumed Chimera Dragon's status. The distance to Fei Hu's Tang Sanzang decreased in an instant. They discovered us overtaking them and began shouting in our direction. Yi Gilyong flipped them a middle finger instead. Why don't you munch on this? Nebula, Emperor's Lords of the 9 Stars, are descending to the scenario. Dang it, more's coming, what a cheat. Emperor wasn't a great nebula for nothing. Simply from the number of constellations alone, Emperor could easily be called the star stream, strongest nebula. The heavens before our eyes split open along with descending rays of light, and 9 indistinct humanoid figures appeared. They could be distinguished only through their different individual colors. The Lords of Nine Stars. They were automated combat weapons of Emperor, created by condensed fables. Each one was a weapon possessing as much combat capability as a fable-grade constellation, where 7 heavenly bodies, the Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn, plus the solar and lunar eclipses, had become anthropomorphized. Quack-quack-quack-quack-quack. Particle cannons fired from the mouths of the weapons burned one half of Tangshan, while the other half was frozen solid. The moment I went, damn it, a single streak of light flew out from the thick wall of rising steam. Shen Yuxiong. She was focused on controlling the dragon horse and couldn't dodge in time. Her figure was flung up into the air. Yi Gil-yong and I reached out at the same time to reel her back in and place her on the back of the horse. Perhaps the attack has struck her vital point, because she was knocked unconscious. Those sons of bitches. Yi Gil-yong took over the control of the dragon horse and unleashed his own status. However, the Lords of the Nine Stars were still perfectly fine, and to make matters worse, they weren't our only problems. Nebula, Emperor S-12 Star Lords, are preparing to descend. Nebula, Emperor S Dragon Kings of the Four Seas, are preparing to descend. I finally realized the truth by then. Emperor was dead serious about this great fable. Outer God transformation rate, 98.1%. The enemy's battleship overtook us and shot forward again. Many audience members are looking at you with great anticipation. Currently, the difference in voting score between you and the first-ranked chamber is negligible. If we lose here, the great fable would become Fei Hu's. I turned to look at Yi Gil-yong and spoke to him, Xuan High Priest Nim. I'm busy, so don't talk to me. Please protect Zhang High Priest Nim here. I shall break past them and retrieve the sacred texts. What are you? He failed to comprehend the situation and was about to shout out, but before he could, I placed my hand on top of his head first. You understand, Gil-yong-ah. Episode 82, Outer God 6, Fin. Chapter 438, Episode 82, Outer God 7. For a moment there, Yi Gil-yong's lips bobbed up and down. Tears rapidly welled up in the boy's clear eyes. Why you? I finished patting his head and dragged a nearby piece of floating debris to me. Sun Wukong fired a wind-type magic behind him. Exclusive skill, Way of the Wind LV-10, is activating. Along with the gust of wind, the debris, with me as its passenger, shot forward at a rapid pace. Yi Gil-yong's voice called out to me from behind, but it was buried under the noise of the rushing winds. Someone in the Kim Dokya company is suspecting your real identity. The Wenny King is glaring at you. The 9 stars noticed my movement and began pursuing me instead. A couple of them even shot past me, rather than stopping me here. I spotted the location of the sacred text in the distance. A single book emitting beautiful light rested on top of a small island shrouded in a mysterious fog. And also, the 9 stars and Emperor S constellations were standing before it. I sighed softly under my breath. Outer God transformation rate, 98.3%. Damage to your incarnation body is critical. There was only one remaining method now. Out of the blue, Yu Yonghyuk 999, maintaining his silence on my shoulder, spoke up. This is an idiotic move. Do you wish to become an outer god? I broke out in a smirk. Are you scared? If you force yourself any further, you will really become an outer god. If you do, you'll fail this scenario. I accessed the scenario window to confirm my goal. Hidden scenario, verifying agreement. Type hidden. Difficulty. Clear condition. Introduce outer gods to the star stream, main great fable. However, they must not be introduced in the existing role of outer gods as before. Time limit, 100 days. Reward outer gods trust. Failure, you will lose all of your memories and transform into an outer god. During the progress of the applicable scenario, you must not contact Kim Dokya Company and reveal your identity. If this condition is violated, the transformation into an outer god will accelerate. Warning, your identity is on the verge of being discovered. Currently, the rate of outer god transformation is accelerating due to the poor condition of your incarnation body. As I thought, reading it again only confirmed my suspicion. Even if I become an outer god, I still won't fail the scenario. Becoming one is simply the penalty for failing the scenario, not the condition leading to its failure. There is no difference between the. No, it is different. I'll be turning into an outer god first before failing the scenario itself. The time limit of the hidden scenario I got from the Wenny King was 100 days, meaning I only had to accomplish my task in that time frame. The problem had to do with the transformation into an outer god bit. The reason why I'm transforming quickly into an outer god isn't that I failed the scenario, but due to the bad condition of my incarnation body. So, you won't fail the scenario even if you become an outer god, is that it? Right. I nodded my head and studied our immediate front. It seemed that 999 had finally realized what my goal was. Shares of outer god in the applicable fable currently is 12.171%. In order to complete the scenario, you must secure over 30% of the shares for outer god. At this rate, I'd not be able to meet that goal even if I got my hands on the sacred texts and acquire the great fable. However, what if I became an outer god? Your role in the applicable fable is Sun Wukong. Your share in the applicable fable is 22.51%. What if the role of the greatest Yago, Sun Wukong, was played by an outer god, and what if my goal was accomplished by doing so? Why are you willing to go this far? What do you mean? You won't lose anything even if you let the secretive plotter or outer gods be on their own. Won't lose anything. Are you by any chance pitying the secretive plotter? He doesn't need sympathy from a fool like you. I'm sure that's the case. He's Yu Young-hyuk after all. Yu Young-hyuk, don't make me laugh. He's not the Yu Young-hyuk you think you know. He has already become a completely different something. I didn't reply to him. 999 continued on as he scanned the constellations of Emperor rushing towards us. You don't understand what it means to become an outer god. Once you become one, you rapidly lose all the memories you have accumulated in your life. Even the secretive plotter had to create ports like myself in order to undo. So that was the reason why these K-Koma Yu Young-hyuks existed, I see. I lightly nodded my head and replied, I know what I'll have to pay. In that case, why? Because I have to do it. I replied with a simple grin. I slowly blinked, and during those short moments of darkness, the figures of the outer gods brushed past my mind. Save him, save him, save him, save him, save him. My memories, my memories, my memories. The outer gods, creatures born out of all the countless world lines where Yu Young-hyuk had failed. The worlds that allowed me to live on until now, the traces of the worlds that I loved so much. How can I make any other choice after seeing the truth? Especially so when I could still clearly hear them even now. Qaya. An energy blast destroyed the log I was riding on, but I simply ran on the surface of the water by using the scattered debris. Way of the Wind is accelerating even further. Way of the Wind is evolving due to your speed that has reached its limit. My leg speed gradually picked up and soon, I began running on the water without the debris serving as footholds. You have understood the pinnacle of walking on water. Due to the usage of an excessive amount of status, the damage to your incarnation body has worsened. Outer God transformation rate, 98.6%. My heart began pounding away in an ominous rhythm. Outer God transformation rate, 98.7%. That beating noise, it was the sound of me becoming something that was no longer me. 999 said something to me, but I couldn't hear him as the river exploded all around us. What I did hear, though, was another voice coming from the inside. Kim Dok-ya. The fourth wall was talking to me. Thy S is insani. It seemed that this guy had also been observing everything until now, but that was pretty obvious. Yow ilforg et ev it hing. Kim Dok-ya no loing grw il be Kim Dok-ya. The fourth wall was right. Outer God transformation rate, 99.1%. Once I become an outer God, I'd lose every memory I acquired until now. Kim Dok-ya was scared. It was a horrifying prospect when I thought about it. To lose all the memories he had made until this moment. I looked at the paragraphs rising above the wall and spoke up. It'll be fine, because you remember everything, right? Wati. You've recorded everything about me, so I'll never forget about myself. The normal me wouldn't have tried something like this. I'd never want to experience losing all my memories after all. The fourth wall is greatly shaken up. However, I possess the fourth wall. I had no idea how I acquired this skill, but nevertheless, this wall recorded everything the moment this story began. I recalled the sight beyond the wall, the library shrouded in forlorn, yet cozy darkness, as well as the librarians that greatly cared about the place. The important story of the ways of survival that contained every Yu Young-hyuk regression turn had been recorded there, and even the unimportant life of Kim Dok-ya was recorded there as well. Library was recording everything about Kim Dok-ya, even in this very moment. Kim Dok-ya's breath, his appearance, his laughter, and his manner of speech. The food Kim Dok-ya likes and the ones he dislikes. Songs he hummed occasionally. Expressions he makes when he's sad or happy. His habit of muttering to himself when he's not feeling confident and the ensuing self-deprecation. His habit of leaning his head slightly when worrying about the kids. The slight twitch of his eyelids as he closes his eyes after thinking about his mother. The smile he makes whenever he's talking to Yu Sang-ah. His arcing eyebrows and naughty smile whenever he's making fun of Han Soo-young, the guilt when he thinks about Yi Hyun-seong, and the glint in his eyes when he recalls the story he loves. That was why I could say it openly like this. I can just read from the beginning again. Bayuti. From the moment the subway arrived, all the way up to when I arrived here in the journey to the west, I can just read them all again. The shell made out of light, fired from afar, landed near my feet. I was swept away in the explosion of light and sunk into the water below. I flailed about and grabbed hold of a piece of nearby floating debris. Damage to your incarnation body is critical. Outer God transformation rate, 99.3%. I stood up and ran again. I really had only a little more remaining. Because I love reading the most in this world, after all. Breathing got heavier and harder. Outer God transformation rate, 99.4%. It felt as if my memories were beginning to scatter away already, bit by bit. A spear fired by one of the 9 stars brushed past my shoulder, but the pain shooting up didn't even feel like it belonged to me. At that moment, I inexplicably recalled a post I made a long time ago in the online community portal. I'm looking for eyes that haven't read The Ways of Survival yet. I felt really bummed about the fact that the story I loved so much was coming to an end, and so posted such a thing online. Recalling it made me smile ever so faintly. To think that I'd forget about such an entertaining story and read it from the beginning again. That'll be a good thing in my case, actually. Kim Dok-ya is an idiot. As if it was angry, the fourth wall yelled back. I won't tell an ithing. Even if it was saying that, I knew it'd help me out anyway. IW or GIVYO forg edding. My skin was ripped up from the barrage of the firestorm, and the pain akin to my back snapping in half tore through me. Exclusive skill, the fourth wall, is strongly activating. And such pain was being blocked by the fourth wall. I swung my fist at the 9 stars pouncing on me. My knuckles ached as if they were punching hardened steel, but I didn't back off. Great Fable, Demon World Spring, has begun its storytelling. Great Fable, Torch that Swallowed the Myth, has begun its storytelling. Setting of I've become the retired SSSSS grade Sun Wukong is activating. Due to the retirement penalty, your will to fight has decreased. Due to the retirement penalty, you can't use all of your strength. Come to think of it, I forgot about that stupid setting being in place. All the power of the fables wrapped around my body were quickly abandoning me. Block him. He must not reach the sacred texts. The ruins housing the sacred texts were right before my eyes. It was an island made out of granite, a treasure that withstood the hardships of a lengthy amount of time. The answer that Tang Sanzeng and his companions acquired after 14 years of journeying was there. Many audience members are looking at your fable. Judge Prisoner of the Golden Headband is waiting for your choice. Judge Meihuang is waiting for your answer. Judge Baimon is studying your fable. Judge Sakyamuni's successor is looking at you. Everyone on this ride, along with me, was starring at this very moment together. Outer God transformation rate, 99.7%. The 9 stars desperately blocked my path. Fei Hu's Tang Sanzeng was hurriedly running towards the sacred texts in the meantime. If I wasted any more time here, then more constellations from Emperor would arrive, and I'd not be able to retrieve the sacred texts. Score 50,412. Ranking of the applicable fable chamber is first. I looked up into the sky. Scenario Master is looking at you. For some reason, I had this feeling that if it was her, she should have realized it a long time ago. That she knew already who I really was. And why I had to keep my identity a secret from my companions. For some reason, I had this baseless hunch that she knew everything, but decided to feign ignorance until now. And then, the Scenario Master's voice came to me next. You got him it. I smirked after hearing that. As the constellations rushed at me, a new narration began to unfold. Sun Wukong looked at his enemies. He had already fought against them in his previous life. Outer God transformation rate, 99.8%. All those tiresome battles. He was a retired man, and he swore that he'd never fight again. However, I blinked my eyes while listening to the narration that sounded like a lovingly crafted letter. Right, if it was you, I knew you'd have figured it out already. Figured out how this story would conclude. As he slowly clenched his fists, strength from a long time ago welled up uncontrollably. Your retirement penalty has been completely removed. Heaven's equal, the power to control the clouds and lightning of the sky. 5th bookmark has been initiated. Exclusive skill, Lightning Transformation LV 23+13 has been initiated. Your status is overcoming the physique requirement penalty. Pure white physical energy swirled around. The electrical arcs from the lightning transformation tore into the heavens above and destroyed the stars of the lords of the 9 stars. He was called the Savior because he saved many with his fists, and he was called the Demon King because he killed many living creatures. Jet black wings tore out of my shoulder blades, and that was why he was the Demon King of Salvation. These were memories of the distant past. I shifted my gaze back and saw the corpses of outer gods dyeing the Tangshan River's waters. Back when he reigned supreme at the zenith of all Yogos. He ruled Yogos, he fought, and in the end was defeated. The lengthy journey changed him, and through his awakening he became a Buddha. They had died as the expendables for the sake of this scenario. And this was the result of his awakening. The headband on my head began hurting me. Even when suffering from this pain, I still dashed forward. Powerful constellations of Emperor pounced on me next. Stop him. He must never lay his hands on the sacred. For the sake of all the Yogos that died. He decided to become the Demon King of Salvation one more time. Demon King of Salvation is revealing his status. Every constellation before my eyes was flung away as blinding light exploded, and beyond that light, a single book was waiting for me. I reached out towards the sacred texts. Outer God transformation rate, 99.9%. Your existence is evolving into an outer god. Episode 82, Outer God 7 Fin. Chapter 439, Dakya's Incarnation 1. The boiling power of chaos encroached into the blood vessels in my entire body. One by one, fables began resisting against the invasion of this foreign power. Fable, one who opposes miracles, dreams of miracles. Fable, one who murdered an outer god, is resisting against your change. Great Fable, Demon World Spring is protecting you. I barely managed to hold onto my wavering consciousness and staggered towards the sacred texts. I thought I heard voices coming from somewhere, which could have been a side effect of transforming into an outer god. I figured that my consciousness breaking apart somehow automatically activated Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. However, it wasn't only one person this time. As if I was seeing many people's POVs, several voices came at me at the same time. I already knew. That was you, Young-hyuk. It was just too obvious from the get-go, you know. I thought that it might as well be. Yijai-hai. If he didn't tell us up front, then he must have had his reasons. Shen Yuseong. I already was suspecting it too, you know. Di Dakya Hyung. Yigil Yong. Dakyo SSI. Jiang Hui 1. To these folks who understood it all already without being told, just what could I possibly say to them? What a powerful Sun Wukong he is, who could he be? That was Yi Hyun-seong. I ended up smirking softly. Right, maybe it's for the best that he doesn't find out. I sensed my memories beginning to crumble away. Once the transformation into an outer god was over, all of my memories should scatter away like cosmic dust. Kim Dakya was scared. The fourth wall probably was aware of it already. That big talk of mine was nothing more than just a coward pretending to be tough. After losing all my memories, will I still remain as me? I did die a few times so far, but never have I lost all of my memories. What would happen to the me that remembers everything from here onwards? What really scared him was not death. Even if I got to read them all again, would I be able to regain the emotions I felt back then in full? Fable, comrade of life and death, is looking at you. Fable, one who hunted the king of calamities, is looking at you. Fable, liberator of giants, is looking at you. Would I really be able to feel the same emotions that I felt during the acquisition of all these precious stories? And finally, the sacred texts were waiting for Kim Dakya right before his eyes. The Journey to the West remake. That book was the great fable itself. The moment I grasped it, this great fable would become Kim Dakya Company S, as well as the Outer Gods. Kim Dakya reached out towards the sacred texts. With this, we'd be able to complete this journey to the West. Tsuchachachachu. It was at this moment that something strange happened. Due to the unexpected event in the scenario, your transformation into the outer god is being delayed. It's being delayed. Sparks exploding all around me got even more violent while the roars from the constellations grew further away. The flow of spacetime was being warped strangely. Probability so powerful that it gave me chills and back-wetting goosebumps was being mobilized. It felt as if the entirety of the star stream was writhing around. Someone was intruding into the scenario by breaking through the distorted space. Great Dakibai Hyaju has incarnated to the scenario. Great Dakibai Hyach has incarnated to the scenario. Great Dakibai Harong has incarnated to the scenario. Great Dakibai Haram has incarnated to the scenario. Great Dakibai Hisal has incarnated to the scenario. Several great Dakibis were incarnating before my eyes. Tsuchachachachachat. As if it had turned into stone, my hand reaching out towards the sacred texts froze up in place. This shouldn't be happening. You cannot acquire that story. Dakibis weren't able to interfere with the main scenarios. No, actually, some did try indirectly to pick fights with us, but there had never been an instance where a Dakibai with great, as its classification personally distorted a scenario like this. However, these ones had betted away their probability, and did indeed intervene with the scenario. Starstream is violently convulsing. Great Dakibus were also a part of the Starstream. Even if they were tasked with controlling the system, they were not exempt from the consequences of abnormally abusing the probability. Perhaps that was the reason why the powerful sparks were dancing around wildly on the bodies of the great Dakibus. The forgotten ones need to remain forgotten. I thought I could understand just a little why they were willing to go this far, if I took the sacred texts and acquired the great fable in the process. Then the outer gods they had been excluding from the story would officially be incorporated into a great fable. Outer gods were beings that couldn't be controlled fully by the system they possessed. Never mind the mid to lower grade old beings. If the higher-ranked outer gods were to enter the scenarios indiscriminately, then the star stream would fall into unbridled chaos. Even then, I simply had to complete this task. Give up. Statuses from the great Dakibus had tied my entire body down like chains, and my fingertips reaching out to the sacred texts came to a dead stop only a single hand span away. However, I didn't get flustered. As the great Dakibus appeared here while going against the probability, theirs was no doubt that another creature tasked with fixing the tilted balance of the distorted probability would appear soon. Kugagagugu. Speak of the devil, a whirlpool suddenly formed in the middle of the sky. It was the great hole, and an existence revealed itself and looked down at me from beyond the opening. Take the sacred texts, O Apostle of Black. It was none other than the Weni King, the one I met back in the Engai's forest. Great Dakibus discovered the Weni's presence and roared out in sheer astonishment. How dare! The devil of the horizon, how dare you show yourself here? You do not possess the probability to appear in this scenario. The Weni King sneered back at them. It's the same story for you too. The statuses of the great Dakibus and the Weni King collided, and my previously restrained body regained its freedom, and my hand crossed that final distance. Outer God transformation has resumed. The Weni King smiled brightly. Oh, dear star stream, the worlds you have erased shall advance once more. The moment my hand touched the sacred texts, my consciousness faded away within the brightly lit storm of electricity. I could barely sense what might happen from here onwards. I looked behind me and slowly closed my eyes. The only thing he could trust now was. Showers of light exploded and scattered in the distant sky. Even the 9 stars, even the 28 mansions, they all had no choice but to look at the explosion in that moment. Every constellation of the nebula, Emperor, is freaking out. Yigilyong atop the dragon horse was busy evading the 9 stars' attack until then, but even he had to bring his mount to a stop. Shin Yuseong regained her consciousness and opened her eyes on top of the saddle. The moment she did, her eyes quickly snapped towards the western sky where Yigilyong was also looking at. Her heart was beating powerfully. Something has gone wrong. Eliminate these small fries quickly and... The lords of the 9 stars and Emperor's historical figure-grade constellations recovered from their fluster and hurriedly rushed towards Yigilyong and Shin Yuseong once more. The boy spoke up, his gaze still fixed to the western skies. I'll create a path, so get going. No one needed to explain it to them. The story they were searching for was over there. Go and rescue Dakya Hyung. That was where Kim Dakya was. Shin Yuseong could sense it, maybe far better than anyone out there. Just as Yigilyong jumped off from the dragon horse and unleashed his status, Shin Yuseong made her mount break out into a dash. The horse reverted back to the jade dragon and flew forward like a speedboat on the river's surface. A nostalgic scent of a fable wafted in from the distance. That's where she could see the starlight from her sponsor that protected her for a long time. It was shining so brightly like that, yet why hadn't she been sure of it before? Countless questions raged on in her head before slipping away. Why was Kim Dakya in this place? Why didn't he reveal his true identity to anyone? Shin Yuseung couldn't answer any of that, however. She felt that if Kim Dokya was lost again in that place, she'd never be able to see him ever again. Quack 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 quack. Beams of light fired by the 9 stars slammed into the dragon horse. Shin Yuseung screamed as she plunged into the river water. However, there were creatures that dragged her back out of the water. Kim Dokcha, Kim Dokcha, Kim Dokcha, Kim Dokcha. Where? From when did this happen? Yogos that had been previously floating around gathered into a large group and were crossing the river. Somehow, she ended up on top of the group. Yogos were floating up like stepping stones and created the path forward. Save him, save him, save him, save him, save him. And as Shin Yuseung ran on top of the Yogos, she belatedly realized it. The reason why Odyssey is here, it's for the sake of these guys. The moment she realized it, something welled up from deep inside her. She saw Kim Dokya's fable scattering away within the blinding rays of light. She didn't need anyone to explain to her that he was clearly in serious danger right now. Why does Odyssey always alone? The first emotion she felt was resentment. Why didn't Kim Dokya ask his companions for help? There must have been a reason for that. She knew that, but he probably thought that this is for the best. Even then, there were some things that remained difficult to accept. It was the same story back in the Dark Castle, and also in the demon world, and even during the Great War of Saints and Demons, too. Their lengthy scenario was simply Kim Dokya's history of continued sacrifices. And that was why this resentment wasn't directed at Kim Dokya, but towards Shin Yuseung herself. She was none other than Kim Dokya's incarnation, and that's why she felt this sadness. The pain she was experiencing right now was nothing when compared to his determination. For sure, Kim Dokya would have said something like, Yuseung, listen, there's no weight to sadness. Shin Yuseung didn't agree with those words. Sadness did indeed have weight. The despair of a person risking his life trying to save someone else, and another's grief born from powerlessness while watching that feat unfold, would never carry equal weight. In the end, to every human being, the most precious thing was themselves. And Kim Dokya risked everything of his always. It was right at that time that the river water suddenly exploded in front of her eyes. Constellations of Emperor vomited out as they crashed back down to earth. Come, you disappeared stories. Accompanied by the voice reverberating throughout the world, the entire world began changing. Several great holes opened up in the various parts of the sky, and creatures possessing unimaginable statuses started to cross over. They were no longer the outer gods. Black Square, Black Square. Black Square is participating in the role of extra. Black Square is participating in the role of extra. They were Yogos from the journey to the west. This was the final war to determine the owner of the sacred texts. The horde of shadowy, demonic beings rushed in to put the finishing touches to the final pages of this lengthy tale. A spectacle akin to the world meeting, its annihilation played out. And in the center of that apocalypse, Kim Dokya with his 2 blank eyes was wandering among the Yogos. Was Shin Yuseung mistaken when she thought that he no longer seemed to be Kim Dokya, but a Yago? I need to stop him. On top of the broken Yogo's path, Shin Yuseung looked down at her small hand. It was a hand that she believed was capable of achieving things far greater than any adult could, and it had done precisely that many times before. However, at least in this moment, she felt that it was nothing but a child's small hand. The heavens split up and the ground caved in. The Tangshan River's waters overturned in its entirety, and the living creatures atop it died in their droves as blood and fables flooded out. Judge Sakyamuni's successor is looking at you. It was exactly then that she felt someone's gaze and heard that person's voice. Yuseung, only you can do it. It was a voice she knew so well. Sanga Uni. At this rate, Dokya SSI won't be able to come back. Only you can prevent that. There was not enough time to ask how something like this was possible, so Shin Yuseung only asked the necessary question first. What should I do? Yu Sangha didn't answer her right away. However, what she did say sounded like a Buddha bringing up a new topic for a conversation. Do not forget your role. Shin Yuseung stared momentarily at the sky in stupefaction, before her gaze shifted over to Kim Dokya's direction. A golden headband glowed faintly on top of Sun Wukong's head. She looked down at her fist again. It was still that of a little child's, but at the same time it was the fist of Tang Sanzeng as well. Can I really do it? Her voice was trembling. Kim Dokya's figure staggered about in the distance. Fable, Demon King of Salvation, is continuing with its storytelling. Finally, the tears she was holding back broke free, but that could be what Ajasi wants, you know. And to such a child, Yu Sangha spoke. He has been alone for a very long time. Kim Dokya, letter F90, Chinese letter. To someone like that, telling him that he's not alone a few times won't suddenly change anything. Shin Yuseung was Kim Dokya's incarnation. You need to tell him, always be next to him and reaffirm it for him. As she cried, Shin Yuseung stepped forward, until he realizes that he's truly not alone anymore. She gathered every little scrap of her status and began running hard. Just like Kim Dokya using the way of the wind, she too gave everything she had and ran on top of the river. While stepping on the water's surface sinking in bit by bit, Shin Yuseung shouted out loudly as if to tear out her vocal cords. Ajasi. Kim Dokya wasn't listening. In the midst of the bloody battle between Yogos and the constellations, he was looking back at her with empty eyes as he slowly morphed into another Yago. His body was changing. Kim Dokya was scattering away. Don't go, please, please don't go. She watched her sponsor slowly disappear right before her eyes and shouted even louder and louder. It didn't sound like words, but screams instead. These were things that couldn't be conveyed with mere words. A brand new fable is sprouting within you. Not everyone could use special methods to communicate, and that was why fables existed. Words that couldn't be conveyed would become stories eventually. The golden letters of the Constrictive Sutra had become a fable, and they began emitting bright light now. I'm not going to give up, just like how you keep rescuing me, Ajasi I. As the meteors rained down all around her, Shin Yuseung looked straight at her star and told her tale. I'll definitely save you too. Episode 83, Dokya's Incarnation 1 Fin. Chapter 440, Episode 83, Dokya's Incarnation 2. The sounds of explosions spread out from the center of the battlefield. The surrounding atmosphere was going through a change. Ranks of Yogos were rushing over there, and Emperor-S constellations continued to descend. Fei Hu's eyes chased after those ranks before shifting back to the enemy blocking his path. You're truly strong. Are there more incarnations like you in Korea? Jiang Huiwan's whole body was riddled with wounds. However, her status remained firm and unaffected, while her will to fight burned brightly. He looked down at his sliced-off chest and waist, the wounds inflicted by her steel sword. He wasn't fighting alone. Currently, both Erlang Shen and Prince Nezha were aiding him, plus he was receiving support from his nebula as well. Even then, he had failed to defeat a single incarnation from another fable chamber that entered the scenario as a mere bull demon king. Stop yapping and just come at me. Fei Hu stared into Jiang Huiwan's blazing eyes and slowly shook his head. The mere fact that we had to fight so bitterly against a single opponent already signifies our loss. As if he was no longer interested in fighting her anymore, he sheathed his weapon and looked at the distant sky. And more importantly, the true battlefield doesn't seem to be here. As those words came to an end, Fei Hu flung himself in the direction of the sacred texts, along with Erlang Shen and Prince Nezha. Jiang Huiwan was about to hurriedly chase after them, but then, a battleship suddenly summoned onto the river took them away at a rapid pace. Activation of Hour of Judgment has ended. That was a really close call. If the fight continued on for a little bit longer, she would have lost for sure, as expected of Fei Hu. He wasn't a direct incarnation of the Emperor for nothing, it seemed. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is worriedly scanning the center of the battlefield. Wings of an archangel grew on Jiang Huiwen's shoulders. She began half running and half flying on the water. Just what is going on here? Several skirmishes were unfolding all around her, and she couldn't tell where she should go first. Yijai battling against Emperor's fleet, Yu Yonghyuk fighting against the 28 Mansions constellations, Yi Gil-yong dealing with the Lords of 9 Stars. Dozens upon dozens of great holes had opened up in the sky, and the outer gods crossing over had all transformed into Yogos to battle the constellations. And in the center of it all, Yu Seung-ah, a young girl, was reaching out towards a star. Shin Yu-seung studied Emperor's constellations rushing at her. Nebula Emperor's 12 star lords are descending. Nebula Emperor's dragon kings of the 4 seas are descending. One by one, Sun Wukong's sworn enemies were gathering. It's not over yet. It's fine as long as Tang Sanzing doesn't touch the sacred text. Divide the army. One side shall retrieve the texts, while the others will suppress their Sanzing. She grabbed tightly onto the Chimera Dragon's mane, currently in its Jade Dragon form. The main attack force of Emperor was now taking aim at her. Kim Dakya, meanwhile, was still too far from her. Emperor's 12 star lords are barring their statuses. Kaboom! Light exploded before her eyes. The Chimera Dragon protected her by wrapping around her body. Choking heat penetrated into her entire figure. The second and third explosions went off one after the other, and the dragon screeched out loudly. Shin Yu-seung gritted her teeth and leapt up by stepping on her mount's back. Your sponsor's blessing is influencing you. Your stunning talent has blossomed. You have comprehended the way of the wind on your own. She didn't know how this was possible, but still, Yu-seung ran on the river's surface. The blessing of way of the wind was exploding out from the tips of her feet, and golden ripples spread out everywhere they landed. Shin Yu-seung ran as Kim Dakya had. This was the same method that her sponsor used to run. A mixture of blades and spears pounced on her from the surroundings. 3 from the left, 1 from right. 2 more from below. She evaded them all by a hair's breadth. However, the more she dodged, the more vicious the attacks became. Hundreds of sharp blades rained down like a dangerous storm. It was a spectacle akin to a monster opening its maw wide to bear hundreds of fangs at her. And as she found herself right in front of such a monster, Shin Yu-seung pulled out a dagger from her inner pocket. Shin Yu-seung analyzed the situation like Yu Yonghyuk. There was something she learned from Yu Yonghyuk some time ago. Fable, Conquering King's Disciple, has begun its storytelling. In the future, you shall become the Beast Lord. Countless monstrous beings will cower before your feet and serve you. However, that does not mean you can become friends with every monster out there. During Kim Dakya's 3-year absence, Yu Yonghyuk taught her how to hunt. Ways to face off against large monsters, ways to hunt monsters with sturdy outer shells, and even ways to kill monsters that were hard to fight against in close quarters. If you must kill, then do not hesitate and end its life. If you don't, the one dying will be you. The moment she held her breath, she spotted a gap between the blades. It was the calm eye of the raging storm. She unleashed all of her status and threw the dagger in that gap. Quack 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 quack. Waves of wind scattered away, and the blades flying in at her fanned out away from her. Unfortunately, she couldn't evade every single weapon. A blade's edge brushed past her small figure. Blood spluttered out from her shoulder. Shin Yu-seung crouched as Yi Hyunseong would. She crouched and, while hiding behind one of the floating debris, Yi Hyunseong's face flitted in and out of her mind. This is how you hide, you see. Don't forget to always memorize the location of all the covers in your vicinity, okay? Ajasi, moving his bear-like huge body and assuming a crawling position with a troubled smile on his face. And then, Jiang Huiwen's voice, adding one more thing on top of what Yi Hyunseong had said. It's possible that you won't find a place to hide if there are too many enemies around. You're right. The powers of the dragon kings of the four seas were currently controlling the river. Sharp spears made out of water aimed at Shin Yuseung's body and rushed in. Debris continued to explode one after the other, and there was no more place left to hide behind on the river's surface now. When that happens, you should use your enemies instead, like this. Han Suyong spoke as she grabbed and lifted the head of the crouching Yi Hyun-seong. Jiang Huiwon was shooting a glare at her, while Yi Gil-yong was cackling away. Shin Yuseung recalled all those memories and grabbed one of the incarnations attacking her to use as a shield. What are you, Qwarak? Shin Yuseung became as cold-hearted as Han Suyong. She discarded the incarnation body, riddled with grisly holes, and continued to run forward. She's a pretty smart kid. Do not let her get away. The distance to Kim Dak-ya had closed up quite a bit. Ajasi. Kim Dak-ya's figure stopped as if he heard her call. As she looked into his empty eyes, Shin Yuseung recalled what Yu Sang-a told her in the past. I'm sorry that the world is like this. She could see her companions gathering around one by one. I'm sorry that you got hurt like this. I'm sorry that you had to rely on powerless adults like us. Even if that's the case, I'll promise you one thing. We'll always be by your side. We'll do our best so that you don't get to use these types of skills. Shin Yuseung remembered those words well. To make sure that you don't forget who you are. Slice. A long spear brushed past her cheek. She unconsciously touched there as blood trickled down. No one was around to help her. Neither Yu Young-hyok's back that protected his companions, nor Jiang Huiwon's sword that she could always rely on, were here. A lengthy arm used the moment that she had lowered her guard and grabbed her collar. Emperor S. 12 Star Lords were getting closer and closer. Didn't expect her to be a real kid. They let a child play such an important role. The status of emperor that defied all attempts to resist pressured her entire frame. In any other normal circumstances, she'd never be able to fight against these enemies. Running away was the obvious route to take, and seeking help from her comrades was the best she could do. But Shin Yuseung didn't try to run away. Condensed fable has caused an abnormal event. She slowly blinked and opened her eyes. Her heart, previously pounding away like crazy, suddenly grew calm. A cold glint flickered in her eyes next. Incarnation, Shin Yuseung, attribute evolution is imminent. You have found the opportunity to evolve your attribute. I'm not just a little child. What did you say? Shin Yuseung grabbed the Star Lord's left arm. The powerful grip emanating from the child's hand caused the constellation's arm to tremble. My name is Shin Yuseung. You have acquired a legendary attribute. You have become the Beast Lord. Shin Yuseung from Kim Dak-ya Company. A status as white as snow ran amok on the surface of the river. As the Star Lord screamed and backed away, a girl wearing a white coat made an appearance before their shocked eyes. Beast King sensitivity. It was the greatest defensive skill of the Beast Lord, deployed by Shin Yuseung from the 41st turn. The surrounding river water overflowed, and every Yago, as well as monsters submerged under it, leapt out at once. Guio. As if they wanted to pay respect to their king. Son of A, where did these things come from? Attack, kill these beasts first. Emperor S constellations began their bombardment, but a rising tide of monsters protected her. Chimera Dragon. Guaela. Affected by her attribute, the Chimera Dragon's body had grown even bigger. The creature swam in the water like an emugi and swallowed up the Star Lords while screeching out loudly. Constellations being torn apart by the sharp fangs cried out. You stinking lizard! Shin Yuseung disregarded those constellations and ran forward. Oh. Yuseung. Yogos created a clear path for her. And now the star was literally right before her nose. Ajasi. She shouted at Kim Dak-ya. However, he showed no signs of movement, as if her voice didn't reach him. It was then she heard the Weni King's laughter resound out as it battled the great Dakibus. It's too late. He now belongs to the great plotter. Those words seemed to be the trigger. The heavens above powerfully shook right away. Su-cha-cha-cha-cha. A great hole, boasting a size so immense that others couldn't even be compared to, was slowly revealing itself. Great yogos on the river's surface simultaneously lowered themselves. All the fur on the white coat of the Beast King's sensitivity rose up like fuzzy hair. She could sense it without anyone telling her. The one descending right now, it was an existence far surpassing all the constellations of the Emperor Nebula. And Kim Dakya was now that creature's possession. I won't allow that. Tang Sanzang has recited the Constrictive Sutra. The moment Shin Yuseung activated the skill, the golden headband on Kim Dakya's head began emitting bright light. Item Constrictive Headband is reacting. The Constrictive Headband was a treasure to control Sun Wukong. Didn't matter whether it was in Yago transformation or not. Every change taking place in Sun Wukong would come to a halt when the sutra was being recited. What foolishness! The Weni King's status bore down on Shin Yuseung's whole body. She tasted blood in the deepest part of her mouth. The coat created through Beast King's sensitivity flapped around crazily. She staggered on her feet as she walked closer to Kim Dakya, one step closer, and yet one more step. She saw his messed up face, his gaunt cheeks. Her sponsor, his eyes quietly closed. Ajasi, a brand new fable is sprouting in you. She still had so many things to tell him. She'd tell him about that stuff that saddened her. And also tell him that Ajasi looked terrible right now. For the first time ever, she'd earnestly tell him everything. Please, please listen to my voice. She'd tell him that she wanted everyone to stop by at a PC bang. She'd pester him to buy her pizza and cola and have a picnic by the Han River. And while talking about her impossible wishes in a world where many things have become impossible to enjoy, she'd become happy again. Her vision quaked and tears streamed down without rest. Finally, her hand touched the ends of Kim Dakya's fingertips. One hand covered in scars wrapped around yet another, also covered in wounds. It hurt as wounds rubbed against each other. Even then, Shin Yuseung didn't let go of that hand. Quay's a myth-grade fable, Savior of a Star, has been acquired. Fable, Savior of a Star, has begun its storytelling. I still have too many things I haven't told you yet. Like when she was studying history with Sang-Ah Uni. Or when she was cooking the hunted game with Jung-hyuk Ajasi. Back when she learned how to wield a sword from Hui-Won Uni. And when she practiced riding a skateboard with Jai-Hai Uni. Also, when Hyun-seong Ajasi lifted her up and carried her around like an aeroplane. When she ate ice cream with Yi Gil-yong and read a manhwa, knowing that the follow-up volume would never be released. If only Ajasi was also in those memories. So many things. I'm not wishing for many things. She simply couldn't say those words. Because the world's probability in this screwed-up star stream didn't allow that. I just wanted to be normal. The stars in the sky were moving quickly. Individual heavenly bodies sang their own fables and looked at her. Many audience members are looking at you. Actually, she understood it already. She knew that the ordinary happiness of an ordinary person in this world would not be able to attract any interest whatsoever. And that was why that ordinary happiness was the greatest luxury in a ruined world. Even then, audience members are paying the cost to reveal their modifiers. Constellation, Queen of the Darkest Spring, is. Constellation, Bald General of Justice, is. Even then, if someone was willing to hear her story. Constellation, Demon-like Judge of Fire, is. Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, is. Constellation, Goryeo's First Sword, is. As the indirect messages continued to pour in, Shin Yuseung held Kim Dakya's hand even tighter. It was precisely at that moment that a certain indirect message landed in her ear. Judge, prisoner of the Golden Headband, has heard your story. Warmth began returning to Kim Dakya's hand. A blinding torrent of golden rays shot out from Sun Wukong's headband, and that was followed up by a raging storm of probability's powerful sparks. Constellations of Emperor shouted in their great astonishment. See, could it be? But that doesn't make sense. From several places in the sky, lightning bolt-like rays gathered towards Kim Dokya's figure. Judge Baimon has heard your story. And in that moment, something that had never happened before in the history of Journey to the West finally happened. Judge Meihuang has heard your story. The retired Sun Wukong has finally turned over a new leaf. Judge Du Zhanchengfo, victorious fighting Buddha, wishes to hear your next story. Episode 83, Dokya's Incarnation 2, Fin.